This is a mega compilation of all the origins I covered that function for 1.18. Yes, that Minecraft version is a few years old at this point, but hey, if you're playing any Origin shenanigans on 1.18, this is a video made perfectly just for you.
So fire's fun, right? What if you could be a pyromancer in Minecraft? That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Well, today I'm going to show you a mod that allows you to do that. The Pyromancer Origin, created by the user known as T in the Origins Discord server, using of course the Minecraft Origins mod. Whilst the Origin was created for use in 1.17, I did test and play this Origin mostly in 1.18 throughout the creation of this video, and I can say that it works mostly fine. Anyhow, let's get started. Starting off with, we've got the Firebolt ability. The Pyromancer fires 4 orbs of flames in very quick succession. This ability is essentially a rapid fire flame cannon that is very quick to activate. It's got a very minuscule cooldown that you can use pretty much every couple of seconds. I think it's around like 1-2 seconds in between each use of the ability, and you can shoot out 4 orbs of fire at the same time. It's kind of like those blaze flames that blazes shoot at you when you're getting into that range of fire. It's basically what you get to shoot. You get to shoot flames, you know, pretty self-explanatory there. This does require the use of your middle mouse button, so when you press that, you can shoot the flames, as you would have noticed of how I picked up on the fire, the skeleton egg when I was playing around with it. Another cool thing is the fact that this can actually hit Endermen. The flying flame orbs can actually hit the Enderman, meaning that you can actually use ranged attacks on an Enderman. Ironic, that one doesn't happen too often, eh? They hate arrows, but fire, they'll get hit by it, no problems, no questions asked. Overall, really good ability, pretty damn useful if I do say so myself. Because who needs melee when you can just shoot flames, rapid fire style? Next we have the Inferno ability. Basically, the Pyromancer uses an Inferno flame to gain another jump. Now this isn't exactly a jump in the sense of what you would think it is. It's more like a dash more than anything. It's a directional dash though, so if you're looking up, it can act like a secondary jump. But one big thing to always keep in mind is that you still take fall damage as this Origin. So I mean that if you do use your secondary jump slash dash to go a little bit higher or a little bit further, you will take fall damage if you go too high or you jump off a cliff with the extra speed of the dash. So just keep that in mind, be very wary of it, but this is more of a directional dash than a jump, but it's still pretty useful nevertheless to have as a double jump, quote unquote, because it may help you get to the other side of a cliff or something like that a little bit easier and a little bit quicker and less likely to fall off the edge of something, because you can quickly just jump back to your own thing where you were beforehand. Anyhow, giving you all these beautiful buffs, it's really cool and everything along those lines, but we kind of got to do something to balance that out, and that's where this first disadvantage comes in, known as frail. Your lack of cardio has left you with a weaker constitution than average. Mainly speaking, this only decreases your hearts down to 8 overall, which I've already made my grievances about the heart decreasing in the past. It's just a very common thing with these type of Origins. But the other thing that comes down with it is you also have your melee damage half, meaning that with melee capabilities, you are far worse than what most other average players are. This of course is leading you to use your fire abilities more often, because they're actually going to do normal damage whilst your melee has been decreased. Back to your abilities, your secondary ability is a Scorching Ray. You expel a highly heated ray of energy out from you. Now the tooltips in the actual Discord message from this user is that it's a very short range ability, and it's a very strong but short range. From testing, it does have about like a 10-ish block to 15 block range you can use to shoot. There'll be a certain point where it just won't reach it, but the biggest caveat to this is it will not go through any blocks whatsoever. Even transparent things such as leaves, it will completely get force stopped at that. Even if it's like a small slab right in front of you, it will get stopped by that. So basically you have to be very precise with how you're aiming, but it does do a fair bit of damage, being able to two-shot a majority of mobs that you come across, aside from stuff like golems. But hey, it sounds like it's time for another disadvantage. It's a disadvantage known as Dark Magic. Items that have a cursed enchantment on them will do 3 extra hearts of damage to you. Yeah, that's right, this Origin is actually giving a use for cursed items. Of course, it will only function like this against anyone who's a Pyromancer, but I mean, keep that in mind. If you have a cursed item and you're versing someone who you know is a Pyromancer, you can do some extra damage with these weapons. Anyhow, now that I've quickly disappointed you with another disability, let's go to the Nether for our next set of abilities. Now this next ability is called Elemental Resistance. Your training with heat has granted you the control of flowing magma. So of course, self-explanatory, you're immune to fire because, well, you're a fire mob. You create fire. Kinda makes sense. You're also immune to magma blocks because, again, makes sense, you shouldn't be hurt by fire. The next thing is the cool bit and the reason why we're in the Nether. You're immune to lava lava. But not only that, when you're in lava, you have the ability to see in said lava pretty damn well, and you also have super speed lava swimming abilities as well. Yeah, that's right, you can swim extraordinarily fast in lava, and it's not just like a simple speed up in swimming to match the swim speed of like how most players would swim in the ocean. No, it's actually a super speed S-type swimming that is going to be quicker to swim through the nether in the lava than is going to be travel by land. Just by default, just swimming is going to be 10 times faster because it's just so damn fast. Okay, so moving away from like abilities that actually affect your gameplay and things along those lines, let's talk about a bit of a visible cosmetic that gets added towards your character. It's called the aura. You spend so long around flame that you emit fire yourself. Again, as it says in the ability tab, it's just a cosmetic. Basically, you just have flame particles coming off of you, kind of similar to how lasers have those like little fire particles coming off of them when they're floating around doing absolutely nothing. It's a nice little cool effect to add on to you, and that's about it to it. Moving back into the abilities, we've got the fireball ability. This is your primary ability key to your primary ability key button. The Pyromancer unleashes a powerful ball of explosive energy. This is basically the Ghast Fireball. Well, I guess that'd be overselling it a bit. It is kind of like the Ghast Fireball. It is a singular fireball that has an explosion attached to the end of it that also leaves a bit of fire on the trail. It's just nowhere near as strong as what the typical Ghast Fireball is. It is about like 75% of the power of a Ghast Ball, give or take. It's pretty powerful, but it's not overkill. It's not something that's overpowered and something that would become a very piss-taking annoyance because it doesn't leave as much fire. In fact, if you hit a tree with it, it actually doesn't seem to leave fire. I mean, I hit the same tree like 5 different times and no fire was ever left. Maybe that's just the case of that tree, but fire doesn't seem to get left as much as what a Ghast Ball would do, nor is the explosion anywhere near the size of a Ghast Ball, and then the range also seems to be a bit of a limited one on whether it would actually do any explosive damage or leave any fire behind. So ultimately, it's a weaker Ghast Ball. That's the best way to say it. Best way to go around it. It's just a weaker fireball overall, but to combat the fact that you also have the fire machine gun ability in your middle click, as well as a fire laser on your secondary ability, all your abilities constitute with fire, so it makes sense that the fireball that you have isn't as powerful as a typical Ghast Fireball. Overall, this Origin's strength is ranged combat. Because of all the fire ranged abilities you have the best strength when you're at a distance to your enemy. And ultimately, with the use of your dash ability or your double jump ability, whichever way you want to call it, you also have an easy way to get out of fights that you might get stuck into in close range. Of course, your weakness is that you can't do as much damage, nor can you take as much damage, and cursed items will hurt you a lot more than normal. This does also include things like bows and stuff like that. Any form of cursed item used against you will lead you to take a bit more damage than average, and considering you have less hearts than average, you really don't want to be taking those hits. So best way to approach with this Origin in any given circumstance is to take a distance of a fight. Do a fight at a fair bit of a distance and take advantage of your range abilities and try and avoid getting hit. You get close into battle, use your double jump / dash ability to get the hell out of that battle and get back to a range quarters where you're not so close to them and won't be taking melee damage, so you won't have to worry about doing melee yourself because you're pretty weak in that regard. And ultimately, the super speed that you have in lava makes the nether be the best place that you want to be most of the time, especially in any form of battle. One thing that I would probably add to this ability or change to this Origin is maybe some form of weakness to water, because what the tooltips here say, there is nothing for water at all. You still can treat water like it's normal. I wouldn't say make water do damage to you or anything like that. Maybe more it slows you down in water, you can't swim as fast, or you get weakness while you're in there. Something just to make it so that being in water is not a good idea for you, because it does do something to give you another disadvantage. Want to become Spider-Man in Minecraft? Well, now you can by using this custom Origin for the Origins mod. The Spider-Man custom Origin was created by the user known as A. This requires the 1.18 version of Origins as well as Fabric Tailor along with it. Let's get started. So, the Spider-Man Origin is a 3-impact Origin. You're a Spider-Man, a menace. You have awesome spider powers, but you're still a menace. Moving into our abilities, we have Enhanced Body. You're stronger, faster, bouncier, more resistance, and have excellent eyesight. Well, except for when you're in water. In essence, this ability gives you Saturation, Jump Boost 3, Speed 3, Strength 4, Resistance 4, and Night Vision permanently. Basically meaning you have the ability to one-shot a majority of passive mobs. Hostile mobs less so, but you still do a bit of damage with them without even needing a weapon of sorts at all. And then of course you've got that resistance to boot, which means that you don't have to go straight for armor as quickly. Yes, this is is indeed an overpowered origin. It's kind of how these go sometimes. Sometimes the fun origins are just overpowered. The other side of this though is that these abilities will immediately start their countdown and wear off entirely when you're in water. The moment you step out of the water though, you get these abilities back, and so basically you just don't want to go on water. Water's not your friend in this scenario. And hey, if you want to join me live with some Minecraft shenanigans, I stream over at twitch.tv/Krzair every single night, so please come and join, have some fun. But moving into our next ability, we've got the wall crawler. You can crawl up surfaces and ceilings like a spider. I'm pretty sure we all saw this ability coming, considering the fact that this is meant to be a Spider-Man based origin. But yes, you can crawl up walls, you can crawl on ceilings. It's a very useful ability for traversing the land, especially when you're trying to go up massive buildings or when you're trying to build some pretty cool structures. It's an easy way to get around and it's pretty damn useful overall. Just a bit of a side note to keep in mind here, if you want to crawl on the ceiling, you do have to be holding the spacebar button whilst you're doing so. If you're not holding the spacebar button, you will just fall off the roof and potentially take fall damage if you fall a far enough distance. And hey, make sure to subscribe, hey? Moving into our next ability, we have the suit up ability. You receive your famous Spider-Man suit when you equip a full red leather suit. This allows you to sling and shoot your webs. However, if you take too much damage whilst in the suit, it will be destroyed. So first off, let's address the mighty elephant in the room. This is an ability that you actually have to do a bit of survival Minecraft before you can actually unlock, as it does require you to equip a full set of red leather armor. And I do emphasize on the red fact, if you just apply normal leather armor, it will not activate these abilities for you. You will know when you equip the right set of armor, because this is when Fabric Tailor kicks in and swaps your skin for an actual Spider-Man skin. This is when your abilities come into play that we'll talk about in a moment. But yeah, this origin, whilst being very overpowered for what it is, it does lock a few of the more powerful abilities behind a few paywalls. Well, survival walls, you have to unlock them. You actually have to grind a bit, because leather is always a pain to get, as well as getting a bit of red dye, so you have to do that grind in order to get the armor. Now, from what I can gather, the amount of damage you need to take in order to lose the actual suit itself is probably enough to require you to die first before you actually would lose the skin. And from what I can also gather, due to your first set of abilities, you have a very high amount of saturation, meaning that it's very, very unlikely that you'll lose enough health to actually die unless you're in water when all those abilities get deactivated. So the likelihood of you losing your suit when you take too much damage is very unlikely, considering how much and how quickly you heal with your extreme saturation levels. But enough talking about the suit. What are these actual abilities that you get? First ability you have is Web Slinger. You pretty much already know what this is, but let's just go through it. You can swing from point to point and pull entities towards you with your web slinging ability. This does use your primary ability key, which is typically bind to G, but you can of course change that in the key binds. One of the big things of note is that this ability is a bit weird to get used to, but it's also quite fun at the same time. Another side note to this is you will give yourself a lot of fall damage when playing around with this ability, because you have a tendency of just launching yourself way up into the air. But again, that saturation, as I mentioned from before, will just lead you to instantly heal that health back up and not have to worry too much about it anyhow. The next part about it is you're less likely to actually chain your webbing together, mainly because of the fact that you have the high speed from your other abilities, that it makes it a little bit more difficult to change these abilities together, because you'll tend to be flying at a pretty fast speed. Whilst it's definitely doable and definitely possible, it is also a bit of difficulty to it, and it does take a bit to get used to, but overall the ability of swinging around is quite a fun one to deal with, and is pretty brilliant to do as well. And just the added in bonus that you can pull mobs towards you as well is pretty interesting. And due to the fact that you move so fast when you're swinging around, mainly because of that speed boost and how fast it pulls you, that you can pretty much avoid a majority of arrows being shot your direction by a collection of different mobs such as the pillager and the skeletons. Oh, and the other note is that this ability does work underneath the water, so you don't have to worry about losing this ability if you do go into water. Moving on to your secondary ability that comes along with this suit is your web shooter. You can shoot out cobwebs around you to trap potential enemies. Now I just want to put a side note out of here. This one will probably become one of your most underused abilities overall, as it's not really too helpful in a majority of situations. I mean, it's pretty useful if you want to like trap a creeper or trap a collection of mobs that you don't want to deal with and get an easy to run away, but you already move so fast as it is that this ability is kind of null and void, especially when you can just web and sling away, or pull them towards you and swing away, or just do a monumental different other things to get out of that situation. This might become useful when you're trying to catch other players though, as it does slow them down and impair them, and it could be pretty useful in cases where the other player also has a slightly overpowered origin, as you can slow them down and potentially do some damage or just get out of the way. Overall, the secondary ability is a lot less impactful in comparison to your main. But I know what you're thinking. Krzair, there's one ability that's still missing from the key Spider-Man set. His Spidey sense. Well, worry no less, you've still got that ability. You can detect nearby entities through blocks and see invisible and sneaking entities from far away. Basically speaking, whenever anything within the vicinity of you that could potentially be harmful from you, or maybe a mob drop or other things along those lines, gets shifted behind a wall or a block of any forms, it will get this red outline over the top of it. But the moment it's now in your sight and not behind that block anymore, it will no longer have that outline. It's basically actually pretty cool overall. It's not like one of those always visible through the blocks entities like you would see normally with a bunch of other the Origins, where they've always got a glowing outline at all times. They will only ever have said outline if they're behind a certain block or two. And it can also be very useful for an example where you accidentally drop an item and you walk away from the location. You can turn back around and you'll see this bright red outline of the item that you dropped, and it will make you realize go back and go collect it. This ability does have one caveat though. If you are not a fan of picking up certain items and you leave the drops on the ground, it will just slowly clutter up your screen if they're behind a wall. So just make sure if you're going to dispose of any items, make sure to throw it into a cactus or into lava so they no longer are rendered in the game at all. And yes, this ability functions when you do not have the suit on. But moving into our next ability, we have the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Just like in the song, you sink faster and drown more in water. Now, English is not exactly great in this part here. You drown more, you just drown quicker. Your bubbles decrease at a far faster rate than the average Minecraft player. You also sink extraordinarily fast, and as we've already established at the start of this video, it also disables your ability effects overall. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it does not affect your web slinging abilities. They all still function perfectly fine whilst you're underwater, but you do lose your mega saturation, your strength, your speed, and all the other beautiful effects that you gain based off of your main ability when you're in water. Overall, I'm not too sure how this disadvantage works logically, as I don't think I remember a Spider-Man movie, at least. I don't read too much of the comics, where he has a huge disadvantage in water. And I do understand the song itself is like, yeah, spiders get screwed in water, and in real life, if you drown a spider, it dies, just like everything else. But there are also other types of spiders that can glide across water, so I guess it's up to your own interpretation of whether this is a good disadvantage or not. The Sculk Confection Origin is based off of the themings of the Deep Dark that is coming in the next Minecraft update. This origin is almost completely original on its own, aside from a select few abilities. To use this origin, you will not only need to be playing Minecraft 1.18+, you also need origins, origin extra and keybinds, extra origins, and Pinnacle for this origin to operate. Either way, after you guys hit the like button down below, let's get into the actual data pack origin itself. Moving into our first ability, we have the Vibration or Location Ascents. You see the world through vibrations. Now, this is the one ability that I have seen used before. Now, the user of this origin, or the creator of this origin, may not have purposely yoinked it, may have created it all on their own, but I have seen it in use before with another similar origin based upon the Warden, I think it was. I'll probably quickly back check right now. Correction, it's based on the Wardling Origin. There's one I've seen this one before, an origin that I covered 5 months ago now, but it doesn't exactly hurt the ability of this all the same. It's still a fairly unique one that I haven't really seen too often, as instead of you seeing Minecraft in the normal way, you are pretty much blind aside from the outlinings of a majority of objects, plus the actual mobs and other bits and pieces similar along those lines. Now, it doesn't exactly give you too much of a unique colors and all these other bits and pieces, but basically you can still tell what the world is. It's just going to be a lot less colorful. It's going to be black most of the time with some outlinings, and that's about it there. And hey, if you're enjoying this video thus far, I'd highly suggest that you hit the subscribe button down below, as I do Origins content every single week, as well as more general Minecraft modding content twice a week. Either way, subscribe. There might also be some live streams coming soon. Anyway, let's continue on with this video. Moving on to our next ability, we've got the I Like the Darkness ability. If you're at a very deep level, you will gain consistent food. The basis idea behind this ability is that you can have regenerative hunger when you're down low enough inside of the world. Now, from what I can gather, it's roughly about Y level 0 and below, you'll start having this regenerative hunger, basically whenever you're in any form of deep slate based caves. Now, another thing to keep in mind here is that this regenerative hunger does not outpace typical damage ticks from, let's say, fire or lava or other things along those lines, so you won't be able to out heal or out hunger certain damage disadvantages, but it can be very useful in a situation situation where you run out of food whilst you're underground digging about and doing your mining. So you won't exactly have to worry about that as much, as you'll be regenerating hunger at a somewhat steady rate. I'd say about like usage, it ticks down a little bit, then it goes back up, and it's kind of a nice rate. It's not too fast that it's overpowered, but it's not so slow that it's absolutely useless either. Moving into our next ability, you've got 100% Sculk. You make noises of infection when you are killed / damaged. Now overall, these additional noises are pretty damn quiet in comparison to the normal typical damage noises that you get, because this Origin doesn't exactly get rid of those typical damage noises, as you still hear those noises such as when you're burning, take fall damage, or other things along those lines. Just instead of the typical normal health damage noises that you get alongside of it, it's more quieter Sculk based noises, which is kind of similar to what you hear whenever you play around with those wireless Sculk things. Those type of noises, they're very faint and they're not exactly going to do too much to your gameplay experience. It's just going to have a little bit of atmosphere addition if you can hear these noises. Moving into our next ability, we've got Velvet Paws. Your footsteps don't cause any vibrations which could otherwise be picked up by nearby life form. This ability is interesting. That is the basis I can give you at the start of this one. The idea behind this is basically a majority of mobs won't be able to detect your existence unless you hit them. When you hit them, they will start attacking you guaranteed, and if you hit one zombie, all the zombies in the area will start chasing you, so that is definitely something that I'd keep in mind at all times. So don't try and hit mobs, especially zombies, because zombies have this weird communication thing in Minecraft where they can pretty much summon all zombies in the general vicinity to come and take you down kind of deal. But one of the weird quirks to this ability is whenever you pause and unpause whilst near a mob, there is a slight chance that this mob will become aggro on you, even though it's not particularly meant to when you've just simply unpaused the game. This is probably the most interesting part of it all, and it will only ever do for the one that's right next to you. It doesn't exactly affect all the ones in the general area. Even when I did it with a zombie, one zombie was chasing me, all the other ones were ignoring my existence, but the moment I hit the zombie that was chasing me, all the other zombies in the general area came and reappeared on my radar and started to go after me. This ability is all around just a bit of an oddity. It's interesting, it's a pretty cool ability, but there's also some hidden quirks when it comes down to it. Moving into your first active ability, we have Vibrato Protection. You reinforce the protection to generate temporary shields. This is using your Tenerary key. When you use your Tenerary ability key, you'll bring up a bunch of armor bars on top of you. Now, it is mimicking either diamond or Netherite armor. I'm not 100% sure because I have no idea how to tell toughness and how toughness works because I'm not too knowledgeable in that type of thing, but it essentially mimics the highest end of armor you can get in default Minecraft, meaning that you will pretty much protect off of that damage and that damage alone. It doesn't give you anything like resistance or anything like that, so that's of course something to keep in mind there, but it gives you like a bit of armor for about 5 to 10 seconds and then it disappears off, and the cooldown is about 30-ish seconds, give or take. Moving on to small but dangerous. Just because you're small does not mean that you cannot be a danger. This is kind of a touch misleading. All it is just a funny way of saying that, ha, you're tiny. In reality, you don't even exist mainly, you're just a bunch of particle effects, but yeah, you get the point, you're small. Moving into your secondary ability, you have the Vibro Locator. You generate a pulse that vibrates and reveals enemies up to 40 blocks away from your current location. Now, this ability kind of works in tandem with a passive ability we'll go over in a moment, but the basic idea behind this, whenever you use your secondary ability key, all the colors / vibrations on your screen will disappear and you'll become a shade of black, and all the mobs within a 40 block range will be outlined with a white line. Now, you can tell if your other passive ability is kind of coming into effect is when they're highlighted with a blue line and they're entirely visible. Another core quirk here that I want to bring up yet again, it's kind of like again with the whole zombie things, zombies can somehow detect a bunch of these abilities in you. Unlike a majority of other things, a majority of the time most mobs won't ever acknowledge your existence unless you hit them, and even when you hit them they'll hit you once and then they'll most likely get disinterested if you walk away from them. Zombies again can sense this ability. If you use your secondary ability too closely to a zombie, all of a sudden that zombie will be starting to go after you, and of course, as all zombies work, will summon about 1 million other zombies in the area to come and chase you down, and then of course kill you. So be very wary whenever you use this ability to not use it near a zombie, otherwise a zombie might chase you down. Anyhow, moving into our next ability, you got Resistance from the Deep. Falling more than 5 blocks will hurt you. Remember, you only have 5 heart. Now typically in normal Minecraft, it will be about 4 blocks is when you start taking fall damage, but giving you just an extra block of leeway in order to take said fall damage. That passive ability kind of works with our second passive ability that we're going through here called Infectious Life. You are a deteriorated being. Your life is 5 points less than the life of a human being, basically you've got half the health of the average Minecraft player, so when you do take damage, it's going to hurt a lot more because it's going to be a higher proportion of your health than normal. So that extra resistance to fall damage is definitely going to prove itself far more than useful in a majority of situations. Moving into our next passive ability, and I actually mentioned this one a little bit earlier, it's the Sixth Sense ability. Due to your way of life, you can temporarily see blue outlines of entities while they're within 10 blocks. Now, here's one of the big things that you need to keep in mind at all times. Unless you use your secondary ability, any form of mobs that are further than 10 blocks away from you will not be visible to you on screen whatsoever. They either need to be within 10 blocks or you need to use your secondary ability to see them. If you don't do that, they are completely non-existent on your screen, so just be very wary of that. You might run into a huge mobs of zombies or something that might potentially be chasing you. Moving to our next ability, you've got Experienced Food. You can eat experience to regenerate the food of your food bar, although you can also eat common food to regenerate saturation, as experience points do not award saturation points. Basically speaking, anytime you pick up any form of experience orbs, if you have missing hunger in your hunger bar, it will actually help replenish that first before going into your experience point bar. But the con of this is it will not give you any form of saturation points with this boost, so you'll pretty much be eating right back into that hunger bar very quickly unless you eat some actual food that gives you some saturation. This does not affect how you eat food though. You can still eat food normally and it still gives you all of its typical benefits. Side note, a weird bug that does occur with this origin is whenever you have any form of experience points, it's kind of always consistently getting drained. Meaning you can never really hold any form of experiencing points, meaning you can't really enchant anything because, well, your experience points immediately drain down to 0 whenever it stops going up. Moving into our next ability, you've got Born Amongst Stones. You can change the state of materialization to cut through anything that is rocky material. Now, going off of what Origin says about this ability, it's meant to be a toggleable with your primary ability, but when I start to use it, I'm not quite sure if anything's actually happening. Going off of my best guesstimation on the abilities of this Origin, one of the ones that isn't exactly explained is your ability to mine a majority of items with extreme speed. You have a certain level of haste that can pretty much mine things at, let's say, the level of an unenchanted diamond tool, meaning that you can mine through stone, sand, and all that pretty damn fast, but because you're doing it with your bare hands, anything that requires a certain tool or tool level won't actually drop the items for you, so you still will need, let's say, pickaxes of all sorts in order to go up the tiers and get the items in order to actually craft a better pickaxes to mine the actual ores and stuff along those lines. But other than that, you can pretty much mine anything with some quick speed with your bare hands, putting you in a pretty decent situation if your pickaxe breaks. But even then, this ability kinda gets wasted in a majority of situations when you consider the fact that your next passive ability, the Sneaky ability, the Shulk does not suffocate between walls, allowing you to phase through the world and actually climb up and get out of any form of situations. If sandstone or something along those lines, if sand falls on top of you, you can easily just breathe. You don't have to worry about it. If your pickaxe breaks when you're in the middle of mining and you need to get back up to the surface, you can just go into the wall. You don't have to worry about the wall being a thing to break. You don't have to worry about your tools breaking when you're underground. You can easily just phase through things and get out of a situation that you're in. Okay, a quick and very important correction to make of those past two abilities. The Sneaky ability allows you to phase towards stone-based objects. You cannot phase through things such as dirt, sand, and other things along those lines, but only stone-based objects, and your primary ability will toggle the ability to go through these objects or not, which is a very key distinction that I want to put in here. But if you toggle this ability when you're inside of the wall, it will give you the screen as if you're suffocating, but you're not actually taking any damage, or is the effects actually giving you the damage on screen. You just see the block in your face. Anyhow, moving into our next ability, you've got High Reflexes. Like Shulk, you can quickly double tap A, W, S, D in order to move to dash in that direction. Not gonna lie, when it comes to this ability in particular, the description does not really do well at explaining on it. Basically, if you double tap any form of movement key, you will dash in said direction that movement key will take you. But I don't think you're gonna exactly find too much use out of it going forward. It will be pretty useful when you're wanting to quickly dash side to side. Definitely very useful in those situations, but moving forwards or backwards won't exactly find too much of a use from you, mainly because it gives you a small dash forward, but then after that, if you're already going at sprint speed, this does pretty much null and void the actual ability itself. It doesn't exactly work too well when you're in the air either, so I guess that's its own thing. And hey, since you made it this far into this video, I want to just let you in on a little bit of a secret. If you press the F4 button when you're playing as this Origin, you can actually toggle the vibration visibility effect. This does not remove any of the other abilities, so mobs will still not spawn or become visible unless you're within 10 blocks of their range, but you can actually remove that annoying vibration effect if you're not a fan of it for survival mode. Remember when we all thought that Technoblade would have some form of wither-based Origin? Funny how things changed. Anyhow, in theming of that, in today's video, I'm going to be going through a rabbit-based Origin, also known as Lepus, created by the Discord user known as Dan's other clone. This Origin is for Minecraft version 1.18 and up, so 1.18.1 and 0.2, because I know that came out very, very recently. So let's get started with the abilities of this Origin. Moving into our first ability, we got an ability known as Leap. It's a hefty leap that launches you up and forward. Now, this is your primary ability, of course. So this movement ability is very useful in multiple different situations, but the main core of it is it's more useful for propulsing yourself forward rather than up, as you're unable to use this ability when you jump. So let's say if you jump normally, you cannot use this ability whilst you're in the air. This ability will only activate when you're touching the ground, which I feel like is a good choice on the creator's behalf here, with the fact that that makes it so that you can't use it to get some extreme absurd heights with some of the bugginess that comes with these type of abilities, and it kind of like balances out a little bit so you can't just jump across and then try and finish off your distance with this jump. But this does allow you to go pretty far forward. On about a bit of testing, you can roughly jump around 4 to 5 blocks up into the air somewhat consistently. There is a very occasional chance that you can have a little bit of a glitch mode where you jump up like 10-ish blocks, but I only had that happen once out of a lot of testing. Then the secondary bit to it is that you can jump roughly about 8 to 15-ish blocks ahead of you. It's again a bit more dependent on how, like, where you are in the world and a lot of different things along those lines, but it's roughly how the ability works, and it's pretty damn useful. Now, if you found this video, I'd like to ask you guys to hit the subscribe button down below, as I make Origins content every single week, as well as multiple videos about mods. Either way, let's continue on. Moving into our next ability, we've got the bunny hop ability. Your natural jump is 2 blocks high, but it's unaffected when sprinting or sneaking. Now, I just want to say here that this Origin thus far has got some pretty neat balancing little bits and pieces going into it. First off, being able to double jump whilst you're sprinting is extremely useful to have some absurdly high jumps and at good positions and go long distance with a jump. Ultimately, having it so that you can disable it when you're sprinting it, or it auto disables whenever you're sprinting, allows it so that you can sprint at the highest speeds like you would normally in Minecraft, but also makes it so you can't do absurdly far jumps at the same time either, because you no longer have the 2 block difference. And then again, the ability to just hold sneak so you can only jump 1 block is just a beautiful little addition to this. It's just another little way to deactivate the double jump if you don't want to be jumping 2 blocks high for that small period of time. Otherwise, it's a very cool ability and very useful with some pretty nice balancing touches. Moving into our next ability, you've got the ability known as Lucky Foot. Your odds of receiving better loot from chests and fishing are highly increased. Now, this does make use of the luck effect that has been in Minecraft for quite a while now, but doesn't really have an active use in Minecraft at all. So you'll know that this isn't active when you see the luck ability effect next to your inventory, like you would as this will allow you to have a far higher long jump in comparison to before. Think of it, you jump once and all, and as you hit the ground, you press the leap ability. It takes a little bit of practice, but once you get to it, you can pretty much do some really big jumps pretty easily. Moving into our next ability, you've got the Forager ability. Breaking grass with hose has a small chance to give carrots or potatoes. And overall, you can see the use of this ability, considering that food is your good way to get saturation, and vegetarian food, like carrots and potatoes, are super useful to this origin. This ultimately is just an easy way of getting some pretty competent amount of foods. All you need to get to is like a handful of each type, and then you can easily farm it up yourself. So if you, let's say, got a shortage of carrots or shortage of potatoes, you can quickly just go break some grass and get a few handfuls overall. And just so you roughly understand the ratio of how often you get the potato/carrots, so roughly around enough foraging to get around 35 seeds, I got 15 carrots and 9 potatoes. Now that's not going to be 100% accurate to what you might get, but that's roughly a decent ratio. You get way more higher volume of seeds than you do potatoes and carrots, but you do get a competent amount on alongside with it. Next ability we have here, you have Golden Vision. Eating golden carrots lets you see in the dark for a little while. Very self-explanatory. Whenever you eat a golden carrot, you get around 44 seconds of night vision on you, which is ultimately might be useful, might not be useful, considering that you have to be able to eat you need hunger to eat the golden carrot in the first place. You might not find too many uses for it, but it's there. Moving on to your next abilities, these are both abilities that require crafting. That gives you the ability to do some cool crafting little things. First off, you can make rabbit hide out of leather. You just put in one leather into the actual crafting bench and you will gain 2 rabbit hide out of it, so you can actually naturally craft some for yourself. But the second thing, and the much more cooler thing, is that this actually you can use the rabbit hide to create yourself some bundles. With using 6 rabbit hide and 2 strings, you can create yourself a bundle, which, I don't know, might be useful, might not be useful. I guess it's up to you. Spring trap, scrap trap, burn trap, I always come back trap, and now he's in mine trap using the Minecraft Origins mod. Today we have the Scraptrap Origin created by the Discord user known as Mel, who took a moment to put 2 and 2 together to realize it was me asking to use their origin in a video. So hey, you made it into a video. But hey, let's get started with the origin. The Scraptrap Origin is a 3 impact origin for version 1.17 I believe it was, but it works perfectly fine in 1.18. Let's get into the powers. Moving into our first ability, we have Exposed Bone. You attack much slower and mine much slower, but you deal much more damage whilst holding an iron sword in your offhand, aka upgrading your Exposed Bone. Now I want you to hang with me when explaining this one. The basic idea here is that using an iron sword in your offhand will give you a bunch of cool abilities. Now you might be thinking, why would I want to use an iron sword in my offhand? Why not use this as my main weapon? Well, whenever you have an iron sword in your offhand, you'll be given the effect of Strength 3, meaning that any weapon you use will be powered up by a drastic measure. Effectively, your hand will be as good as an iron sword by default with this strength boost, but this strength boost applies to anything else that you're also using as your main weapon. The con of this is, of course, you can't use a shield when you have this sword in your offhand, because you can't use that sword as a weapon because it's in your offhand, meaning that you also can't exactly use a shield very efficiently either, allowing you to be a lot more vulnerable in any form of attacks. And then the secondary to this, whenever you're holding an iron sword in your offhand, you actually have mining fatigue too. And if you've encountered an ocean monument and have been given that mining fatigue of fun, you know how painful that is. Of course, at least it's an easy solution to get rid of that by removing the sword out of your offhand, but it's definitely something interesting to keep in your mind, that you get a good boost in damage, but at a disadvantage of your defense is open, and you also are far slower when it comes to mining. Anyhow, apparently 150% of you guys who watch this channel are currently subscribed to this channel, and that's not okay. So make sure you hit that unsubscribe button down below. Also, come catch me around on the streams on this channel. I try to stream every single day, similarly around 10 to 11 AEST. Back into the video. Moving into our next ability, we have the Metal Fist ability. You have a metal hand, which if you didn't know, it's very hard. Overall, this is just a nice damage increase upon the damage you do with your bare hands. It will be somewhat useful in the early game. I don't know how useful, as honestly, it still takes a high amount of hits to actually kill a mob that will actually harm you, that I don't think it will become very useful or handy in most circumstances. But hey, you do a little extra damage, meaning that you can potentially kill passive mobs a little easier. Moving into our next ability, you've got the Armored Bunny Suit. You have full armor points because you're a robot made of metal and a mental skeleton. This also gives you more health overall. Not much to really think about as this ability. You basically have the equivalent armor of a diamond/netherite armor. I do not know if it's got the toughness thing added on top, but you also have the ability where you don't need to worry about durability, but you also can't exactly enchant your default armor that you spawn with. The secondary thing to this is, of course, you have 20 hearts. You have double the normal bunch of iron blocks or not. Moving into the next ability, you've got I Always Come Back. Of course you have more health, as it seems you always come back. Give up already. Now the whole health benefit was mentioned in an earlier ability. It was mentioned within, I think, the whole you have a metal rabbit body and you get extra armor and extra health, but hey, if you haven't got it already, you have 2 health bars overall, meaning that you're super tanky as hell, on top of the fact you have a full set of diamond / netherite armor permanently on. So overall, very useful there. And you know what? Having that extra health and they'll always come back meme, you know what? It kind of matches the whole death thing. You die and respawn. Oh my god, you always seem to come back. Moving into your next ability, you have the Strong Arms ability. You're strong enough to break natural stones without using a pickaxe. Now again, this is, whilst very cool in theory, the ability of being able to get some stone without needing an actual wooden pickaxe at all is very cool and very useful. It can be useful getting your first 3 cobblestone for a pickaxe of a stone variety instead of going to a wooden one. In execution, it's not really a great or useful ability to have in most scenarios. It's good to get your 3 cobblestone you need for a pickaxe, but beyond that point, it's entirely useless because you're still mining as slow as you would if you're using your hand anyway. A wooden pickaxe is still going to be faster than mine, so is a stone, so is an iron, and so on and so forth, making this ability one of those ones where it sounds good on paper, but overall isn't particularly useful. One of the things I would probably aim to improve with this mod is maybe give yourself an actual proper ability, as this mod's got no active abilities whatsoever. They're all passive ones, so maybe just add in something like potentially like the ability to do a jump boost type thing to kind of match in with the jump scares or something along those lines to kind of give a boost to how this origin works, as it's really just mediocre. It's a cool idea and some very cool and well executed concepts, but overall there are some things that just feels like this origin is missing a lot of content to this one. Time to become a demon in Minecraft by using the Minecraft Origins mod. The origin is created by this user, and let's get into the abilities of this origin. Moving into our first ability, Carnivore, your diet is restricted to meat, and therefore you cannot eat vegetables whatsoever. Restricting your food source, you know the deal with this one. You can't have any form of vegetable based foods, including the golden apples and golden carrots, which are the best overall foods, but you still have access to things such as steaks, so it's not all bad. Moving into our next ability, you've got the Nocturnal ability. You can slightly see in the dark when not in water. I think it's fair to say that the origin creator here is very underselling this ability, because the difference between being out how you can see at nighttime when you're outside of water and how you see it underneath water is like night and day. No pun intended. Actually, it was entirely intended. The night vision isn't exactly a slight boost. It's actually quite nice and very noticeable buff and boost that is very handy to come at nighttime. But when you do hop into water, it does become pitch black very quickly and very easily. So I guess that's one thing to keep in mind with that. Moving to our next ability, we've got the Demonic Body. Your Demonic Body is much stronger, giving you many positive effects such as resistance, strength, and speed. Essentially speaking, the best way to speak it is like you're pretty much on a beacon 24/7. You've got a majority of the beacon effects aside from haste almost all the time, which can and cannot be useful at the same time. A lot of people like having the speed effect on all the time, but sometimes there'll become a scenario where you don't like it as much, and the same goes with the jump boost. Actually, jump boost becomes more annoying the more you have to deal with it, but overall it's a very nice and handy thing to have these permanent boosts on your body all the damn time, instead of needing to build up any form of beacon or have some potions on you to get these effects. Moving on to our next ability, you have the Hardy ability. You have 2 more hearts than most humanoids, which overall is a pretty neat thing to have, mainly because you got, 2 more hearts than the typical Minecraft player. But this does come with a bit of a disadvantage that gets conned in with this ability, is your need of movement. You cannot wear armor above iron level, so whilst you have the extra health, you also have the resistance that comes with the beacon effects that you have by default. You cannot wear any armor that's higher than an iron level, which is good and bad at the same time. It's good because it kind of gives you a bit of a handicap in a way, but it's bad because, well, it kind of gives you a bit of a handicap in the way. But it does give you a reason to use iron armor a little bit more. That might break a lot quicker, so I guess you gotta be wary of that one all the time. Moving into our next ability, you've got the Large Appetite. You exhaust much quicker than others, thus requiring you to eat much more than the typical Minecraft player. Overall, a pretty interesting ability. It does require you to eat food more, and it kind of makes sense off the back of the fact that you have a higher health count, so meaning that your food should kind of get consumed a wee bit quicker by everything. But this does have its little bit of a counterintuitive effect that comes with one of the earlier abilities, is that you have regeneration on you in most occasions, mainly because of those effect abilities you have by default. Ultimately meaning that your hunger is going to not really be hurt as much via your health bar being low in comparison to the average Minecraft player, because you have a bonus generation boost on the side of it as well. Moving into your next ability, you've got the Unwieldy ability. The way your hands are formed provide no way of holding a as well. Become Hellchained with mutant superpowers in Minecraft. This origin spawns you in the Nether and you cannot leave it via a normal Nether portal. This origin is created by Silent and you can download from the Origins Discord server linked below. Let's begin. So getting started, we have Hellbound. You've been banished to the Nether for your crimes. You spawn in the Nether and you cannot enter Nether portals. You can only temporarily leave the Nether via astral projection. So yes, you're not permanently stuck in the Nether, but it's nowhere near what you can do with typical Minecraft. Instead, you have the ability to leave for a short amount of time based upon a certain thing that we'll go over very soon. This is the next key part of this origin, soul harvesting. You can kill mobs for a chance to absorb their soul, and the amount of soul energy you get per kill is random and dependent on their presumed sentience. And what you will find out in just a brief moment, astral projection allows you to go into soul form, gain all of its benefits, but this requires souls, and the souls will drain during this form. If you run out of souls, you will be automatically demanifest and go back to your body, whilst projecting your body becomes a portal to your soul's position that other non-Hellchained mobs can enter. Okay, that's a massive mouthful all at once and that huge selection in there. Let's go over it, break it down a little. So starting off, you have the ability to collect souls. As it says, you can collect souls from mobs, and the amount of energy you gain per mob is very dependent on on what the mob is, basically. It says the amount of sentience the mob has, but the very easy way to think about it is like whether it's something that will whether it's an easy or difficult mob to deal with overall. The far more harder and more difficult ones will more often than not randomly give you a little bit more than what, let's say, a pig or a cow will, because they won't go after you. It's an easy kill. Going into the deeper details of the actual soul juice, it has a 30% chance for the mob to actually drop any form of soul juice for you. The amount it drops is based upon the mob, but it's also mostly arbitrary, so a lower level mob might give you a decent amount of soul juice anyhow. This ability does require a whitelist of mobs, so there might be a few mobs in the normal Minecraft that potentially may have been missed by the creator. Just say it in the comments down below if you don't ever get any soul from certain ones. But this also means that mobs from other forms of mods are potentially not going to be supported by this origin whatsoever. Overall, the 30% chance of gaining soul juice I feel like is a pretty fair and balanced thing, mainly because this origin is more reliant on the fact that you can't leave the Nether naturally. And having to grind potentially hundreds of kills to get a decent amount of soul juice to actually last in the world for a competent amount of time in the overworld is obviously a pretty good thing, because it forces you to stay in the Nether for a lot longer than normal. So moving into the astral plane ability itself, whenever you press your G button, you'll go to the overworld. This timer bar, the soul bar, is something you can actually fill up by killing mobs in the overworld, so you can prolong your stay if you really want to, and roughly each section of the bar is roughly 1 to 2 minutes within the overworld. So overall, it's a decent time frame, but of course when you grind to the full thing, you can stay in the overworld for a pretty decent length of time. The next note to put in mind here is the fact that you're in the Nether, you won't actually move around whenever you're in the overworld. From what I can test, whenever you do teleport to the overworld, your body will never move in the Nether, and whenever you go back to the Nether, you'll go to the exact same place that you were beforehand, no matter how much you move in the overworld. But the more you move in the Nether will also change wherever you will go in the overworld, roughly equivalent to what it typically does with Nether portals when you travel in the Nether. It will go around for every 1 block in the Nether, you go 7 blocks in the overworld, something along those lines. And it's a really interesting thing to keep in mind, that you won't actually actively move whilst you're in the overworld with your Nether form, but whenever you move around the Nether, it will change wherever you go in the overworld. And the last section of this ability, which I can't exactly test out myself because I have no way to currently, but basically speaking, from what I can gather, your body in the Nether will become something like a Nether portal. Whenever anyone goes through it that aren't in the same situation that you are, they will be teleported to your current location. This can be a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because you control your friends, especially if they come through right as you go to the overworld yourself, because you're kind of floating down from Earth. Overall, this could be very useful when you're in a multiplayer world and people forgot where their portals were and they need a quick way back to the overworld, and you can just go, hey, come with me. So that can be very useful in most regards. The rest of the abilities for this origin are separated based upon what form you are, whether you're on your form in the Nether or the soul form. I'll specify at the start of them, which this section is going to be all your chain formed abilities. Starting off with heavy acrobatics, you're immune to fall damage, and falling from high distances unleash an AoE attack. Probably the first and the biggest thing to note right off the bat with this ability, this AoE attack will not one-shot zombified piglins, and they will come and start attacking you almost immediately afterwards. But this does have a massive knockback effect, so it might knock them flying off the island you're currently on, saving you from having to deal with them. Big notice aside, this ability activates whenever you fall roughly around 6 to 7 blocks from the sky. So this means that it won't easily activate off of a small type of jump. You do actually have to build up to a 6-7 block height before you take your leap and potentially do some extra damage. But again, as I said, this does not not insta-kill most mobs, and zombified piglin will immediately become angry towards you, so that could potentially cause a lot of problems. Moving into your next ability, you've got Fire Tolerant. Your skin is tolerant to extreme heat and you take 50% less fire-related damage. Yeah, that's right, you're not immune to any form of fire damage whilst you're in the Nether. You just take less of it. Because, you know, you can't make things a little too easy in the Nether. You can give some benefits for being in the Nether, but you can't remove the fire aspect of it entirely. Moving on to a more interesting ability, we've got the Dark Green Thumb. You can sneak plus use the use button on a mushroom in its optimal habitat to bone meal it at the cost of some of your exhaustion. Basically speaking, you have the ability to bone meal mushrooms. All you need to do is hold down the shift button and right click on them to bone meal them. It doesn't work with any of the warped fungus that you can use to grow the trees in the Nether. It only works with your red or brown mushrooms. So I don't know exactly how useful that will be, especially when you're in the Nether. Moving into our next ability, you've got Refined Senses. You can see nearby mobs and projectiles through walls. Overall, you just get given the glow effect on things that are nearby you that are on the other side of a wall or on the other side of a block. Could be useful, might not be so useful at times as well. You do get to see any form of arrows that are sitting inside of a lava pool, so that could be useful, but overall, that's all it is. Now we move on to the abilities of the soul variant of this origin. Starting off with Crying Purple. When near Crying Obsidian, you'll lose souls much faster, get negative effects, and have a purple overlay. Overall, the soul drain is not too noticeable of a increase in how much it decreases, but you do get blindness, mining fatigue, and weakness whenever you're too close to Crying Obsidian for too long of a period of time. So basically, I wouldn't be near it. It's not really a great idea. Moving on to your next ability, you've got Fragile Form. Your form is unstable and weak, and you have a less health as a result. Basically, you have 7 hearts instead of the normal 10. You have less health to play with, so be very careful when you're in the overworld because you're more liable to die. Moving into your next ability, Environmental Immunity. Due to your incorporeal form, you're immune to most types of environmental damage. In layman's terms, you're immune to any form of lava, fire damage, cactus damage, any form of dripstone damage, and things along those lines. Those are environmental based damage that will not affect you no more. Moving into our next ability, you've got Floaty Form. You jump much higher, fall much slower, and get knocked back further. So first off, you can jump up to 5 blocks into the air with this awesome jump boost. You will float back down to the ground with slow falling, and you can also hold the shift button in order to fall faster, but you won't take fall damage from this either, which is overall super useful, but with the caveat on the fact that explosions and any form of knockback will throw you far further back than normal. And when I say far further back, it's a fair distance, and it can be annoying if you're not really aware of it at times. Moving on, we have Contingency Plan. You can sacrifice your absorbed souls to save your life while you're in your soul form, and then though you would normally be able to die without them, you'll just simply go back to your body if this happens. Essentially speaking, you'll burn through your soul's juice a little bit quicker if you go to die. When you go to die, instead of just dying normally, you'll burn a bit more soul to actually, well, stay alive for a little bit longer, to refill your health back to full. It's roughly around like a half a bar section of your souls to heal yourself back up to full, and then when you die entirely, when you have no more soul juice, you'll just teleport back to your actual body in the Nether with only a single heart remaining. So if you're in a spot where, let's say, a piglin will come out and murder you, it might be a bit of a sticky situation there. Now, no origins are perfect. There's always going to be some issues that come with it, but I want to talk about what this one has. And probably by far the biggest issue that this origin has is the sheer amount of lag that comes with the soul form. Whenever I was in the Nether, I was able to play around with this origin, no problems with shaders on, with my typical 60 FPS with no problems at all. Whenever I go into my soul form, not only would I have to turn off my shaders, it would be slightly more laggy in the gameplay, like it would be a bit more janky because it will be a bit more cut, because it's just like the soul form adds a fair amount of lag to your game for some weird reason. I'm not 100% sure why, so I don't know if it can be fit, but overall, other than that, the concept is really cool, and then the execution on this, aside from the bugs and of course the lag issues, is a really cool executed concept. The Lepus Origin is an origin based upon the fictional race which was spawned on the planet of Saturn. This origin was inspired / made in honor of an Origins YouTuber known as Saturn, who passed away back in October. This comes from a bigger mod pack known as Not Enough Origins, which it contains 6 origins in total, the others of which I'll cover in their own videos in depth over the next few weeks. This mod is for version 1.18.1. Let's get started with the Lepus Origin, right after you hit the subscribe button down below. Moving into our first ability, we got the ability known as Falling Stars. You are able to drop falling stars on the enemy, causing an explosion and doing damage to any entities around it. This power will only hurt hostile mobs. So this is an ability that will activate whenever you hit a mob, which automatically means that the backend of the actual ability description, where it only hurts hostile mobs, is kind of incorrect, because it still hurts passive mobs. It just requires you to hit them, because that's how the ability gets activated. Hitting a normal passive mob, they will still take the same amount of damage as any any other normal mob would if you hit them when you have this ability at full recharge. The recharge and slash cooldown to this ability between hits when you can actually get this ability to actually proc off is around 15 seconds, which overall is a pretty nice cooldown time. It's not too long, but it's not too short that it could be considered overpowered. Then it also has the other piece to it where if you are underneath something, the ability has a less effectiveness to it, mainly because, well, it comes from the sky, it comes from above you. Don't know precisely how many blocks above you, so you might be able to go into big caves and it works perfectly fine, but basically speaking, if you're underneath something, there is a chance that this actual falling star ability doesn't work as well. Moving into our next ability, you have the Constellation Sight ability. Every entity around you in a 30 block radius will glow in your perspective for a few seconds. So this ability is key to your primary key. So your primary key is typically bind to G by default, but you can always change it in the settings. Whenever you press G, it will activate the ability, which will give a glow around all mobs in a vicinity of 30 blocks for 30 seconds. Which is kind of a bit misleading on the actual description saying a few seconds, because 30 seconds is not a few seconds, but I digress on that little bit of a point there. The actual cooldown of this ability itself is a total of 1 minute and 30 seconds. The first 30 seconds is of course whilst the ability is currently active, and the remaining minute on the timer will be after the ability finally wears out. Overall, could be very useful when you're trying to find mobs that are underground. For example, when you're hearing a zombie or some skeletons in the caving underground, you can actually spot where they potentially might be, or maybe you're in a situation where you can't sleep in your bed but you can't find the mobs that are around you. For the life of you, this might help you find them easier. But moving on into our next ability, you've got Sunlight Reflection. You reflect the sunlight off of your upper atmospheric clouds, causing you to shine whenever you're exposed to sunlight. So basically, this is an ability that functions throughout the day and throughout the day only, but it also only ever works when you've got nothing above your head. So whenever you're outside of any form of covering, you will just glow. You'll have a nice orange glow around you. Now, overall, this is just a fun little oddity to add to your character, but if you're inside of, let's say, a PvP situation in a multiplayer server, it does make it easier for other people to come and find you because you are glowing, and it makes you stand out a lot more on a map rather than just not glowing whatsoever. Moving into our other sun-related ability, we have Solar Habitation. This is a negative ability. Due to you living on Saturn, the 7th planet from the sun, you got almost no sunlight, and you get a little weird when reacting to sun for too long. Overall, this just adds in a collection of weird debuffs that do come allow when you sit around the sun for roughly around 30 seconds. Basically, the best way to tell whether you're going to trigger these abilities or not is by watching the yellow bar that appears up above your hotbar. This goes up slowly bit by bit when you're out in the sun, and it goes down just as quickly when you're outside of the sun. When you go undercover, you'll see it drop as quickly as it tends to rise. Whenever it gets to a full maximum ability, you'll get a massive amount of nausea. Not just a low amount where it's a little bit of a shaky, it's an extreme amount that can become pretty disorientating to deal with. But this is where I'm going to point out another piece of criticism here. I would, as the creator, would put something else here as well, another disadvantage, another reason why you shouldn't be out in the sun, mainly because nausea effects can actually be disabled via a collection of little bits and pieces in the effects abilities. You can actually disable the nausea so you don't have that visual. So I would recommend you potentially add something else to a disadvantage of being in the sun long term, potentially maybe a very slow ticking poison or something along those lines. I don't know exactly what though. Moving on to our next ability, we've got the Astral Watcher. Now, I originally did have a different segment for this ability earlier on in the video, but at the time I had no idea how this ability worked, and I ended up stumbling upon how to activate this ability, but there's still some weird quirks and issues that come with this ability. Now, first off, do not use a kill command with this ability. It will not activate it. That is the biggest thing to keep in mind. Now let's go over it. When you die, you turn into an Astral Watcher that looks out for other people. This will last for 5 minutes and then you'll respawn again. That's also a touch incorrect, as I feel like there is a bug on the actual ability here itself still. Now, earlier I thought the bug was that I had no idea how to activate it and things along those lines, but that's completely wrong. You can activate it. All you need to do is take enough damage that would actually kill you but not actually die. Hence why kill commands will not work with this ability, because it requires you to take the damage to die, but it won't actually let you die in the first place. Very weird. It kind of acts like a totem in a sense. It kind of gives you that ability right as you do die, and instead of letting you die, it gives you the healing and it flips you into this new mode. Anyway, you'll know when you're in your Astral Watcher mode because you'll have this white glow effect around your entire screen. You also get a bunch of loud sounds when you take enough damage to activate it, but then after that, you can fly around and do whatever the hell you want in the world. That doesn't require interacting with the world itself. You can actually phase through walls like the Phantom does. You can fly up into the air. You can do a bit of fun. It's completely onto you what you choose to do in this mode, because you got 5 minutes just to go around and see what other people are up to, see what's happening around around the world before you're meant to go back to normal. Here's where the problem comes in. I was recording for almost 10 minutes in total, and I activated this ability roughly a minute into the original recording when I was trying to record what's going to be the next ability I cover, and it never exactly went back to the normal mode whatsoever. One thing I did notice is roughly about 6 minutes into my recording, suddenly the mob's AI could suddenly detect me again. They'll start chasing me. A skeleton started randomly shooting me, a creeper decided to explode with me in the vicinity, and then zombies started chasing me as well, but none of them could actually do any damage or anything along those lines. So I'm not quite sure what's happened here. Maybe there is some quirks and bugs with this ability here. It's a very interesting ability overall, and it can lead to a bunch of awesome mayhem that you could cause, or a bunch of interesting things you can do, but there are some weird bugs, and I don't know if it's quite working how it's intended, because it never exactly respawned me back to normal. It just kept me in this astral watcher form for almost 10 minutes total instead of the 5 minutes. There's also a cooldown bar down at the bottom, which barely moved anywhere in the 10-minute time span that I was recording for. So I'm going to take an assumption is that when you do go back to normal, the ability takes quite a long time, probably an estimation of an hour, maybe longer, before you go back to normal. Again, I might be wrong in that. That might be the duration that you stay in the mode and it goes back to normal once it fills up. Again, the developer of this mod, Just Wang here, will actually clarify this in the comments down below, because I know you're watching this part, because I'm pointing out some issues here. But moving on to our next ability, we've got Atmospheric. When you're underneath Y90, you will move slower. You'll have less hearts and less attack speed. It's basically very self-explanatory. Whenever you're above the Y level of 90, you'll be much faster. You have more health than normal. You attack faster. Overall, it's just like you get a huge amount of debuffs when you go below a certain area. Pretty much making it that the 1.18 mountains are very useful to you, because being on top of them, you'll be at maximum power. Now moving on to more of the unexplained stuff that occurs with this origin. For the first one, for example, you are transparent as this origin, so that might be cool to know, might not be. It might not be useful information whatsoever to you. It's up to you on that one. The second thing is that your hand is never visible on screen with this origin. Like, it's completely gone off screen. I have no idea what caused this issue, but it's just gone. And then another thing that rolls into the whole hand thing is that your attack speed doesn't exactly exist properly. Like, you know the normal PvP system, you have to wait for the attack to recharge before you can use it again and get the full attack damage. For some weird reason, that is entirely disabled with this origin. I don't know whether that's intentional or not, but again, that's just another weird quirk that comes with this origin that just means that your attack speed is slower, but you also only ever do weak attacks. So the illusional origin that is found in the Afterlife SMP, which has been currently used by Fwipped before his first death, I have found something that is very, very similar to it, if not possibly the original that's being used in the SMP from the Origins Discord community. Now, one thing I just want to say right off the bat, I am a bit sick today, so my voice is a bit all over the place, so apologies for that. Anyhow, the Illusioner custom origin is created by the Discord user known as Allay in the Origins Discord server. You can download it from the Origins Discord server, which will be linked down below. Anyhow, move into our first ability for the Illusion ability. By pressing your primary key, you will spawn 4 copies of yourself in a random formation. To remove the illusion, just press the save hotkey button. So whenever you hit your primary ability, it will make you yourself go invisible, but it will put one of those illusioner mobs right in the place that you are currently standing beforehand. As you walk around, the ability lasts for a bit. I didn't really leave it to sit out to see how long it actually lasts for you to be invisible for, but when you do press the save hotbar loader key, which by the way, if you have Opti Zoom installed, you will actually have to go into the creative control menus and actually put in a key for what you want to use for that button, because typically it's bind to C in order to have it there. Anyway, when you press this button, the first time you press it, it will make you visible again, but it won't kill off your illusioner duplicate that's sitting there. Then you press the button again and it will kill it off entirely. Overall, this ability is very funky, because basically speaking, in order to actually kill off the illusioner, you're there to replace you, to be a clone, to duplicate you kind of deal. You have to be looking directly at them when you put the save activator key, which is why you can have the ability of only making yourself visible again, but not killing off your clone. Also, from playing around with this, it looks like that the actual ability of you being invisible does last for quite a fairly decent amount of time, meaning that you do have ample opportunity to escape whatever situation you're currently in. Moving to our next ability, you have your secondary ability known as Not What It Seems. You shoot a blindness arrow. Overall, the ability within of itself is overall useless unless in a multiplayer setting, mainly because of the fact that blindness doesn't actually affect mobs, and they'll still hunt you down regardless if you have blindness on them or not, as they can still see you all the same within their AI configuration. But the other quirk to this is the ability whenever you successfully hit your first shot with a bow, whether it be with your actual bow, a crossbow, or this ability here, it will actually give you the take aim advance, which will upgrade your two of your abilities, which is the secondary ability, which gets changed from just being a simple blindness arrow to, because you're so manipulative, you can play with people's heads. Using your secondary key, you can shoot out a purple beam out of your hand, giving the target nausea 2 for 15 seconds, which basically is a nice little upgrade, which again is very useless when you're not in a multiplayer setting, but again, it's still a pretty handy thing to be able to shoot arrows out of your hand every now and then. One thing to be very wary of, I don't know what happened here for this to happen in the first place, but when the Scraptrap exploded that I was playing around with in order to show off this ability, there was a bit of a nausea splash potion, a lingering potion that was left around the creeper's death point, which when you fall into, you get given that nausea effect for a few seconds, which I guess is something to be aware of if a mob does die with this effect on. It may have only happened with a creeper, and that's about it. Moving to our next ability, you've got the Pyromancer ability. This is a buff, and as well as it gets upgraded whenever you do get the take aim bonus. So overall, you'll have it upgraded from the get-go aside from your very first shot of the bow, which just means that I just don't have the original version anymore because, you know, I accidentally overrid it. Don't worry about it. Basically, it does even more damage than before. Because you've trained with bows, they do more damage. Basically, this damage bonus allows you to roughly 3-shot a majority of middle-range health mobs, which is like creepers, vindicators, zombies, and things along those lines, with a very basic bow. And then, of course, leaves you the ability to 1-shot them when you have a power 5 bow, or 2-shot them depending on their distance away from you. Overall, very useful ability and a nice boost in damage that allows you to do so much more when it comes to a typical fight that you might get yourself into, especially when it's said to come down to an ender dragon. But put yourself in a wacky position if someone so happens to jump in front of your bow, for example, like what happened in the Afterlife SMP. Also, side note to one of the early abilities, the illusions that get spawned by your primary ability can give you XP if you do damage to those mobs. But a little bit of a thing to that, you can only do damage to those mobs whenever you hit them in creative mode, then you kill them with your kill ability that removes all your clones. But overall, just a really funny side note to add in there. It doesn't really mean much because you can't do it in survival mode, so it doesn't give you any XP boost, but just a cool thing to know nevertheless. Moving into our next ability though, we've got the Friendly Flows ability. This is a buff ability again. Pillagers who are usually your foes are now friendly towards you as you are one of them. That's right, you can now hang out in your favorite outpost and not have to worry about being shot by the neighbors who live there. They will definitely stare at you and look at you very weirdly, but they won't actually do anything to hurt you. But on the other note, if an Raven just so happens to spawn, he ain't gonna be so friendly towards you and he'll murder you pretty much immediately, so be very wary of that one. But as you understand, there will be a certain disadvantage that will come in turn with this ability. Because you're friendly with the pillagers, villagers will not trade with you whatsoever. Now this is the disadvantage that may make or break this origin for you, because it does get rid of by far one of the most valuable systems in the Minecraft game, especially if you like taking advantages of enchantments for villagers. But at the end of the day, it does provide a whole new different challenge to Minecraft, as again, it gets rid of one of the most valuable systems in Minecraft at this point in time. So again, as I said, this is one of those abilities that will either make it or break it. And yes, this does mean you can't use villagers even when you're in creative mode. They just outright refuse to trade with you. And even if you somehow successfully get into the trading menu of a villager, this next ability will pretty much make it worthless anyhow. You got the Scary ability. This is another debuff. Iron golems will attack you on sight, and villagers will have significantly higher prices when traded with. So even if you do manage to get into the inventory menu of trading with a villager, it's not going to be worth too much because they're going to be charging you so much higher prices in comparison to their normal amounts, as well as the local iron golem will be trying to hunt you down and murder you at the same time. And to further add to that, the illusion or ability that you have at the start of the video, that doesn't really work with mobs. They can still see you regardless of what you do with that ability. You may be invisible, but you're not actually invisible. Only other players will not be able to see you too well. Other mobs and their AI will still be able to hunt you down and absolutely give you a pounding. So iron golems are not going to be your friend. Your best advice is just to not worry about going near a village because, you know, iron golems ain't going to be friendly and they hurt. Moving into your next ability, you've got the I'm not made for this. Because you're a magician only changed with bows, you cannot use shields whatsoever. Which, hey, all in all, isn't too bad of a thing to deal with, mainly because a lot of people don't tend to use shields overall in the first place. You may use it in like a hardcore series or something along those lines, but a normal survival series is not exactly a shield you really worry too much about using in most occasions. But this next one will be a little bit more of a shot in the foot. They're not made for this, which is kind of similar. Like shields, you do not like swords, so they do less damage. So you can still do damage with swords overall, but you just overall do a lot less damage than what a typical vanilla player will do. This basically means that you'll be more liable to using your bow and your bow abilities and other things on those lines in order to have some good defense, mainly because your sword damage capability is so
much lower than normal, pretty much making it so it's not a great idea to do that. Ultimately, when versing your bog standard mobs, it won't really come too much into effect, but it will definitely become into more of a heavy effect whenever you're into any form of battle with another player, as their damage output's going to be so much higher than yours, and you do not have a shield to actually combat this said damage. Become a vampire in Minecraft using the Minecraft Origins mod. This is also a similar vampire origin to the one used by Scott Major in the Afterlife SMP. It's as close as to identical as you can get, as it roughly matches the exact same abilities aside from very little details that are slightly different. This origin is created by It's Your Boy from the Origins Discord server. As you can see on screen, you can find it within this server. This will also require the Medieval Weapons mod as well in order to work with this one. Let's get into the abilities of the origin itself. Starting off with your first ability, you have the Bloodthirsty. With a bottle in your offhand and a dagger in your main hand, you can collect blood by attacking mobs. Drinking your blood actually regenerates your blood bar, and you can use your blood bar to regenerate any form of health that you will lose in, let's say, fights or when dealing with other mobs. Overall, very useful ability for some self-reliant healing. A weird quirk to this ability though is it works on skeletons, which I'm 90% sure that skeletons don't have blood that you can take from them with a dagger, but I digress with that one. Moving into our next ability, we've got the Blood Dash. A dash ability that is more powerful during the night time. Basically, there's two variations of this dash. One dash you'll have in the daytime ability effects, and one dash you'll have whilst at night time. And as the descriptor says, the dash in nighttime is more powerful than what you would have in the daytime. But don't get me wrong though, the daytime dash is still very useful if you want to get out of any form of potential sticky situations, especially when you're fighting other players. Whilst using this ability in the daytime, you'll go roughly around 5 blocks in front of you, but while using this ability at nighttime, you'll go roughly around 30. There is a very drastic difference between how useful it is throughout the day and how useful it is at night, but it's still a pretty useful ability in the daytime regardless, as a 5 block jump boost is still pretty useful in the first place. Moving on to our next ability though, you've got Used to the Darkness. During the nighttime, you'll get permanent buffs from the moon, but on the other hand, during the daytime, you'll become weaker whilst exposed to the sun. Another bit of a thing to keep in mind with this ability is it also means you will take damage whilst underneath the sun, kind of similar to how most mobs take fire damage in the daytime. The debuffs you gain throughout the daytime are debuffs to do with a bit of mining fatigue as well as slowness too. These are non-ticking buffs, meaning at the moment that you get out of the sun after a 3-second countdown, you will get those removed regardless of how long you spent whilst out in the daytime. Your nighttime abilities is a massive speed boost of 3 and a jump boost of 2, meaning that with the use of your dashing ability, you can become extraordinarily fast at nighttime, allowing you to get out of any form of situation that you might find yourself into with your extreme speed. Moving on, we've got our first disadvantage when it comes to this origin, that is scared of wood. Wooden weapons will deal much more damage towards you than your regular weapons typically will. This does count for both swords, axes, pickaxes, shovels. Any form of wooden based tool used against you will do much more damage than what it would usually do. In the case of when the zombie's holding a wooden sword, the zombie's default damage is roughly 1.5 hearts in total damage, whilst the zombie with a wooden sword will do 3.5 hearts in total damage to you when you have no armor, meaning that wooden swords and wooden tools will become far more deadly against you, roughly in equivalence to potentially stone, maybe even iron tools, depending on what weapon they have and if it's a player using them or not. Moving into our next ability though, we've got Photophobic. You take damage whilst exposed to the sun. I don't know why this wasn't mixed in with the ability from before where you get bonuses from the nighttime but disadvantages from the nighttime. This is technically a disadvantage from the daytime, but whatever, we'll go with it. Next up, we have our secondary ability known as Switch. Using your secondary ability key, you can choose a nearby entity that you'll be able to switch with. Sneaking and then right clicking will then execute the teleport action. First off, point of clarification, it's not actually right click as it says in the description, it is just holding shift and pressing your secondary ability key again will activate the switch. Secondly, you can tell who you're going to switch with based upon the little Enderman based particles that will be floating around said mob, which becomes painstakingly obvious if you look at the certain mob for a small amount of time. You can see it, as well as the distance is a pretty lengthy distance, probably the equivalent of your nighttime dash, which is allowing you to potentially get out of any form of maybe sticky situation or just bringing a certain person right back to your location if they're trying to escape from you. You can put them into a trap or many other really cool and interesting ideas that you could potentially do with that. Now, let's say you can use the ability and select the target of another player that you want to get, and you jump into a spike trap or jump into some lava as you press the shift and your ability key to swap places, and they'll fall into the lava whilst you'll be perfectly fine. One thing to keep in mind with this ability though is it will select the closest mob or person to you, but you can walk away a near indefinite amount of distance, as I moved around 60 blocks away from a chicken and it still did the teleportation swap. Moving into your next ability, you've got acrobatics. You'll never take fall damage no matter what height you fall from. Basically, you're immune to fall damage, which is pretty damn useful, especially when you've got a dash that could send you to space if you're not careful when using it. This is a villager origin, similar to the one used by Gem in the Afterlife SMP and possibly others later on down the line. You can find the link to it down below on Planet Minecraft. This one seems to be slightly different to the one in the Afterlife SMP, as it's missing one ability which I'll mention at the end of the video. But moving into the abilities, starting off with hired help. With your primary ability, you can summon an Iron Golem. Honestly, a very useful ability to use in any form of potential need to self-defend yourself against any other mobs that may spawn around you, as well as a potentially useful source of quick and easy iron in the very early game if you want to, but keep in mind this has roughly around a minute to a 2-minute cooldown in between uses. Moving into your secondary ability, you have the evade ability, escape any dangerous mobs. Whenever you use your secondary ability, you'll get a good burst of speed and resistance as well as hunger for 16 seconds. It gives you the ample time to get out of any potential sticky situation that you're in, as well as a bit of bonus defense that allows you to take a little bit more damage at the cost of your hunger going down a lot quicker than normal, giving you ample time to get out of whatever situation you're in, but forcing you to take a moment to bring your hunger back up to full speed again before even trying again. Next, we have birthplace. As you are born in a village, you'll naturally spawn in one. This is very self-explanatory. Any time that you will actually die and you haven't set your spawn on any form of bed or anything along those lines, you will spawn by default back in the village that's closest to spawn. This may mean that the closest village may potentially be 100 blocks away from spawn, maybe spawn itself, or even thousands of blocks away from spawn, but you'll spawn in a village every single time. Next, we have large appetite. You exhaust much quicker than others, requiring you to eat more than normal. This just means that your hunger is going to go a lot quicker than what the average Minecraft player will, as well as combine it with your secondary ability. It means that you're going to want to keep on yourself a lot of food in case of any potential sticky situation. Now, you've probably noticed that one thing that is missing from this origin, and that is the permanent hero of the village ability that Gem's shown off in her videos in the past. Well, it's actually here in this origin, it just never gets mentioned, not in the actual origins descriptions itself or on the Planet Minecraft website itself. So it's still there, just it's kind of hidden. It's here at the Village 5, that's permanent. Pretty useful to have, and very good indeed. So the Allay mob from the mob vote from last year was recently added into a collection of the snapshots for Minecraft, meaning that we're starting to actually get to see how this mob goes overall. And I thought to celebrate that little thing, just the fact that there's now a mob you can actually play around with and test some cool things with, I thought we'd go over this origin created by the user known as LukevV0 over on Planet Minecraft. Pretty much an Allay origin. It's a small one, but it's a pretty fun one. If you create origins yourself and you think you've got some cool ones and want me to showcase them in videos, literally DM me on Discord. Join my Discord server and shoot me a DM with your favorite origin you want me to look at. Seriously, like, you got nothing to lose. I will most likely make a video on it if I like it a lot. I don't have enough time to sit through the thousands of origins that people post on a regular basis, so if you find some cool ones, send them to me. Let's roll into the abilities of the Allay Origin. Starting off with our first ability, we all know what the Allay mob is mainly there for: to go collect items for you, to be a cool looking mob to go collect items that you wanted to go collect from large distances. So the first primary ability of this origin is something in a similar item giving nature, just because of the fact that, well, human Minecraft players can go pick up items like the Allay themselves. Instead, we have a different type of item giving mechanism. By right clicking with a gold ingot in your hand, you can barter with yourself. Now, I do know that that's pretty much just being a piglin. Like, that's very understandable if you think that way, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's kind of one of those deals where you gotta get something out of it at least. I mean, it's the only ability you can give that makes like a lot of sense with the origin itself, because, you know, collecting items for other people, so you have gold you can collect items for yourself, and you could probably give it to other people. It's a cool way of thinking about it in that way. Or not, if you think it's weird that you've got the piglin bartering tool right off the bat, then yeah. But the ability can definitely be considered pretty overpowered, considering you have the ability to get some easy loot such as Krzair obsidian, ender pearls by only collecting gold in the overworld. But hey, don't worry, the next ability will make sure that getting gold will become pretty difficult,
you know the float ability. Now the float ability can sometimes be a touch bit broken and cause it so that, well, you will just indefinitely float for no good reason. Now it's a bit of a bug that happens sometimes but doesn't happen at other times either. It's very weird on how it works. According to the creator of this Origin, he never had any issues with it, but according to the comments, some other people have had issues with it, and I also have issues with it myself in the variant that I'm using here. The Origin does work on 1.17 and 1.16 as well, so that might be the reason why it's broken for me, because I'm using it in 1.18. The floating ability is quite nice. It uses the levitation ability to auto get you to float, and it pretty much just hovers you in the same area that you were when you move away from a block. You can't exactly go down too easily without creative flight being used, so it's definitely a bit of a iffy broken part there. The next ability is that you're transparent, you're see-through. I don't know why this Origin had to tell us that was the case, because I'm pretty sure it's painstakingly obvious just by looking at my skin, but hey, now you know, you're transparent and see-through. Short ability aside, moving into our next one, we've got item search. When the dirt is dug up, you'll receive a random item. So this is a very simple premise. Basically, anytime you dig up any form of dirt, you have a random chance to get given an item. 9 times out of 10, this item is either going to be nothing, a stick, or a bone. That's going to be a majority of what you get out of this ability here, but there is a slight chance that you can get stuff such as an iron ingot. I have no idea or anything else to that loot table, mainly because I didn't really get anything else from any other loot table. That was literally the core stuff that I did get, which is definitely interesting. Overall, it's a pretty interesting ability. You get like bones and sticks from the ground when you're digging around, but you're not even guaranteed to have that in the first place, so yeah. I don't know, it's interesting to say the least. Anyhow, we got now for the Feline's GIF ability. Whenever you wake up, you'll gain a random item from the GIF cat item pool. So basically, if you guys didn't know, there's a little bit of a mechanic that if a cat sleeps on a bed with the player, the cat will give you a random item when you wake up. It's a weird little thing that most people don't even realize exists in the game, but it has its own little item pool. Most of the time, it's pretty shoddy items that aren't exactly always useful. Most of the time, it's like little weird, wacky things, and overall, it's something pretty interesting. Essentially, the main things you can get from this is a rabbit's foot, a rabbit's hide, a piece of string, rotten flesh, feather, raw chicken, or something that could be maybe a bit more useful, a phantom membrane. Overall, you might not find too good of a use for it, but it's still a pretty useful bonus item that you can get every time you wake up in the bed anyhow. Next, we have calming music. Every entity gets stunned for 8 seconds. This ability has a 13-second cooldown. Finally, we have an interesting ability that relates back to the Allay's mechanics again. Took a minute there. I mean, I understand like mostly they're just item finding little things where you can find items in the dirt, you can pick up an item when you're sleeping, and then of course pickling bartering, but this one makes the most sense as an Allay pure ability, where you can play music to stun your enemies, because typically the Allays like their music. Basically, this ability freezes entities for around 8 seconds, as it says in the ability. It seems to have a range of around 10-20-ish blocks. It has a pretty good range that you probably won't be able to get up to a mob that wouldn't be frozen at the time before they get unfrozen, as well as you get slowness and jump boost whenever you hit this ability. The jump boost is mostly useless if your floating is broken though, so keep that in mind. Either way, somewhat useful overall. The Goolien Origin is a gooey alien species that is often confused with their terrestrial slimy cousins. This Origin is also featured in the Afterlife SMP in LD Shadow Lady's most recent video, which she only lasted for a single episode before she died and lost the Origin. This Origin was created by the user known as Extradustrial, which will have a full-on link card down below, as he's asked me to put that down there for you guys to go check out all of his stuff, as well as you can go find this Origin on the Origin's Discord server by searching the Goolien Origin. Anyhow, let's roll into the abilities, shall we? Starting off with something obvious, we have the gooey skin. Your gooey skin makes you green and somewhat translucent. Overall, it's just an aesthetic thing. You can like it or you don't have to like it. Honestly, it's just one of those things where just for looks, it doesn't really do anything aside from just, hey, you're transparent and you're green. But quickly moving on, we've got a more fun ability. We've got the condensing ability. You're able to condense yourself to a quarter of your usual size as your primary ability, but due to your high density and smaller legs, you become slower than the normal player. And this is where our first beautiful connection towards the slime family of mobs, the gooey guys, especially when it comes to the Origins, comes in the connection here. With most slimes are able to shrink down to smaller variants of themselves as they lose health. but this time around the Goolien can do it completely at will. The beauty of this ability is the fact that it doesn't even have an actual cooldown. You can pretty much change your size willy-nilly, going from 2 blocks tall as a normal Minecraft player down to being half a block tall in your smaller state, in your condensed state more like it. And as I said, it's a bit slower than the normal player. It's kind of noticeable but not at the same time. It would be very noticeable as you're running and you switch down size, you'll notice you slow down a fair bit. But other than that, it's just a really cool ability that might help you traverse the world, go through some parkour, maybe explore some caves and other cool little things like that you can do with the ability to go to half a block of size, which is pretty tiny in all things considered. Next ability we have is the gooey body. Thanks to your body being in between of a solid and a liquid, it's more difficult to hurt you and you take less damage from physical attacks. The best way to describe this is you practically have resistance without actually having resistance. You get my drift on that one? Ultimately, it's just like a nice little damage buffer that allows you to potentially take a little bit more damage or get a little bit in more complicated situations without it really getting too dangerous too quickly. Still be very wary though, as you still only have so much health anyhow. You'll take less damage from physical attacks, but any form of bows or potions thrown by witches may cause a little bit of problems if you're not careful. Next, we have the splat ability. You take less velocity damage, but if the potential damage is severe enough, you'll become slow while you try to put yourself back together. That's another little trait that you don't quite inherit from your slime brethren, who have the ability to not only be immune to fall damage, but bounce off of all forms of surfaces. Unfortunately, the Goolien doesn't quite have that, so you gotta be a bit more wary of it. Whilst you won't exactly die too often to fall damage, if you do take a long fall, it may cause you to slow down drastically for a period of time. This will only be for several seconds worth of this slowness, but the slowness's strength will depend on how far you fall. For example, around 10 to 20 blocks you'll just get a default slowness of 1, from around 20 to 50 blocks you'll get a slowness of 2, 50 to 75 blocks you'll get a slowness of 3, and from 100 blocks and above, however high you somehow survive, you'll get a slowness of 4. In my testing, I jumped from around 100 blocks in height and still survived, only losing a handful of hearts but having that slowness 4 deal immediately afterwards, so I guess you can pretty much survive a majority of heights, you'll just have some slowness to go with it right afterwards. Next we have sticky grip. With your sticky skin you're able to climb walls, however this also makes it so you can't throw tridents effectively. Very interesting trade-off we have here, but it also makes sense at the same time. Your hands are sticky, naturally things that you're going to throw are going to stick to you directly. It also makes sense that you can still use things such as bows and arrows because your stickiness doesn't inherently have to touch the arrows all the time. Maybe. Okay, with a bow that makes less sense. With a crossbow it makes a lot of sense. You get my point. You can climb walls kind of like an inchling, like everything's a ladder. Pretty simple. Next we have stomach body. You have increased saturation from meats, both raw and cooked, thanks to how your body breaks down the matter, and you do not gain any form of hunger or poison status effects. However, you have no regeneration and must eat to directly gain your hearts back. Now this is very interesting overall. First off, one of the biggest things of note is that as long as you have missing health, you're able to eat food regardless of where your hunger bar is at, because by default your hunger bar is going to be at 5 chunks. Whenever you do eat any form of food, it will go up as high as the food will give you, but then immediately shrink back down to the 5 chunks, giving you all the hearts that it can off the back of that. Overall, it's a very interesting system that seems to work as intended and is a pretty cool idea overall, changing out your need for saturation and stuff along those lines for healing, instead of having to just consume your food directly to get your hearts back. Next, we have no lungs. Having to survive in space, you've adapted to having no need to breathe air at all, and you're able to go underneath water without the fear of drowning whatsoever. I'm 90% sure you can understand what this ability meaning. If you don't, in layman's term, it means you can go underneath water without having to breathe. Bubbles, be gone. They're no longer a thing for you to worry about. Next, we have Gooey Fist. Because you are not entirely solid, you do deal reduced damage. Kind of a bit of a trade-off, you know? You take less damage, you deal less damage, you know? An eye for an eye. That's a pretty bad reference, not gonna lie. Simple word of advice overall is I wouldn't fight hostile mobs with your fist whatsoever, because it will probably end poorly for you because, well, you can't exactly deal enough damage to kill them in a quick enough time. Again, you do take reduced damage by a long shot, but if enough zombies are around you, that 1 heart of damage can stack up really quickly. From a gatherance by using my favorite crit diamond swords against this husk zombie trick, it seems to be, instead of typically 2 critical hits, it's going to be 3 critical hits. Your damage isn't half per se, it's more of like a third of your total damage was taken off the top. Good thing to keep in mind. The next ability you have is Flammable. Your Your chemical composition makes you extremely flammable, and thus you take increased fire damage and can only be put out with water or powdered snow. Yeah, fire's going to be a lot more painful to deal with, and you're going to want to carry a bucket on you at all goddamn times when you're underground, because if you touch lava, that fire will continue to burn and hurt you until you die, unless you hop in some water or again put some powdered snow on top of you. Logically, it makes sense that you keep the powdered snow part as well, mainly because you'd be screwed in the nether. You take one hit from a blaze or a loose gas cannon and you're screwed entirely, because again, the fire doesn't go out automatically. It requires you to use either water or powdered snow to do that. But then again, unless you have the water directly on you to place down the moment you start taking fire damage, you're most likely going to die. So don't play with fire, kids. Not a good idea. But hey, the fire aspect gets a wee bit more fun, because you've also got ignitable. You cannot wear iron armor or above in deserts, the nether, or any other hot biomes, or else risk the set of fire. Risk being set on fire from the heat. You can protect yourself by enchanting your armor with fire protection 2 or better. Honestly, I'm glad there's a little bit of a workaround to this. If you just get yourself some fire protection on your armor, it can allow you to not burn up in the heat. But it's a very big thing to keep in mind, especially with how most people tend to have iron armor as their natural armor for their first set, and you're probably going to walk into the nether with it for the first time, but you'll burn up with it, so don't. Next we have absorbent. Since your body passively absorbs water over time, being in water for too long causes you to become slower. Honestly, it's not really much to worry about. It's not exactly a stacking slowness. You just have slowness too whenever you're in the water. As I said, it's not really much to worry about. Don't be too concerned for it. It's just a slowness in the water. You'll be a bit slow in water. Pretty self-explanatory there. It doesn't affect you the moment you leave the water. In fact, it disappears pretty much immediately. Oh, hi again. It's Mothling time. Today we're going to be running through the Mothling Origin, which is created by Steve Booth, which can also be found on Planet Minecraft, which with help from Ashley, Golder, and Silent. The name's currently on screen now. This is the Origin currently featured in the Afterlife SMP, but not currently in use, so let's run through the awesome abilities. Starting off, we've got our flight ability. You can fly using a mixture of gliding and wing propulsion. So it's a very interesting ability. Now first off, you come with an elytra in your Origin. Now as you can see in my footage here, the elytra's texture is kind of glitched out. It kind of does that for some people, but not for all people, so your results may vary with that one, but it doesn't affect much aside from the looks of your elytra. The flutter ability is basically your primary key button, which is typically bind to G by default, but in order for it to actually function properly, you want to be currently using your elytra. You want to be in midair in your elytra, and for the best results possible, you want to be going horizontally. You don't want to be facing downwards or upwards, because it will kind of lead to a bit of a momentum defect, which means you'll just lose more momentum than what you gain from the flutter. But when you're completely horizontal, you'll actually float up slowly, but you have to really spam your primary ability key in order to get the full effects of it. The flutter ability does not work very well whatsoever when you're not currently having your elytra activated, when you're pointing directly down if you're elytra, or trying to point directly up. It is completely ineffective in most of those points, and you will just fall back down to the ground. But as I said, you do it in a horizontal formation for the best results, and it's pretty useful overall. You can indefinitely fly with an elytra, which definitely can be overpowered if you think about it. Moving into our next ability, you've got Lantern Light. When nearby a lantern, you will gain regeneration. Now, do I really need to explain this one to you? It's very simple. You get regeneration when you're within about 2 blocks of a lantern. The closer you are to the lantern, the more effective this ability becomes, to the point where you can literally stand on a magma block right next to a lantern and not die, because you'll heal more than you'd take damage, which is quite funny. Next we have Moth-like Body. You're smaller and have less hearts. Pretty self-explanatory, that one. You are just over a block tall by about a smidgen, to the point where when you do crouch down, you'll be precisely a block tall, being able to get into those 1 block sized cases, and you have 7 hearts in total instead of the normal 10. Next we have Weakening Light. Whenever you're nearby a soul lantern, you will gain mining fatigue. It works underneath the same mechanics as the normal lanterns when it gives you its regeneration, as you have to be within a block range for the soul lanterns to give you the mining fatigue. You'll gain mining fatigue too whenever you're near a soul lantern, so I overall don't see this one to be an overall issue, unless you have a player following you around to be purposefully spiteful to annoy the hell out of you with it. Next we have Armor Weight. Armor weighs you down. At most, you can only wear a mix of iron and chainmail. Now if you would equip a full set of iron armor, in a few moments after you exit your inventory, your boots will automatically pop off you and go back into your inventory. Basically, you can wear up to an iron helmet, iron chestplate, iron pants, but but then you must go for chain boots instead in order to have the maximum amount of armor you possibly can get. Overall, the disadvantage isn't entirely terrible, as you can still wear mostly iron armor, but it's not great to lose out on diamond and netherite gear. Next, we have moth diet. You can only eat leather and rabbit hide. This will be the biggest crutch to this origin. Just overall, you only have two sources of food, leather and rabbit hide, both of which can be pretty annoying to get, especially rabbit hide. Overall, the leather as a food source is honestly really good hunger wise. Rabbit hide is pretty null and void because it only gives you one hunger bar back, but this will probably be the reason why you wouldn't choose this origin over, let's say, the Enderian or another collection of different ones. I mean the Elytra, not the Enderian. What am I on about? Basically speaking, this will be the big thing that will cause you not to pick the origin.
So, do you want the powers of the Wither as an origin, but you want to keep some of your humanic formats as well? Well, here's the Half Wither origin for you. An origin previously used in the Afterlife SMP and might be used in a later date for another person's life. If you want to download this origin for yourself, you can click the link down below, which does lead to a Discord server. Unfortunately, that's just how these origin creators like it, and you'll find it that'd be the Half Wither origin created by Troll Likes Pizza. If you want a direct link to it, it's also in amongst the wiki for the Afterlife SMP mod collection, which I'll actually make a video on this in a few days going over it, considering the last video I made talking about the Afterlife mods was pure trash. So let's go in with the Half Wither. So of course, as we go with most Nether inhabitants, you spawn in the Nether, which I've made my case clear on my opinion on Nether type origins. They can be pretty good, but they can also be pretty detrimental as well at the same time, mainly because you're stuck in the Nether. Unless you're good enough to really take a good exploration, get a lucky spawn near some potential forest, as well as a Nether fortress potentially nearby, you're not really going to be making it back to the overworld too soon. Anyhow, the Half Wither is half human, half wither, nothing more, nothing less. Your first ability is the Wither Skull. You can shoot this at your target. So activate with your primary ability, you'll shoot a beautiful Wither Skull. Let's go grab a mob to kill it with a classic Piglin. Okay, now tells the Piglin brood here we hit him with a good old Wither Skull. He gets a bit of an explosion and he also gets hit with some Wither effect. Why do I not remember that? What? Anyhow, it also has the ability to break blocks too by the looks of things. That's pretty cool. Yes, we're going to be rolling through my testing process of these origins at the same time as I talk about them. How does it take to kill a pig? So going off of the fact that it takes 3 Wither Skull hits to kill a Piglin brood, it does a pretty significant amount of damage. Let's get just a normal Piglin. So here we go with that. Don't want to kill a baby. That counted. Oh, the Piglin's now looking at me going, what happened to my mother? It does a pretty significant amount of damage, considering the fact that one Wither Skull shot seems to be able to kill a Piglin, especially if you consider the Wither effect damage that they're taken afterward. Moving into our next ability, you feed off the souls to those you kill. I'm assuming, so let's do something stupid here. Oh, I just did it. You know, sometimes I don't have the brightest decisions. That's not the Piglin I want. I wanted normal Piglin. Yeah, it'd probably help me if I get rid of some of my hunger first. So now we've got a missing bit of hunger. Let's spawn a Piglin and let's kill it. That fills up my hunger back up to full. Granted, I hadn't lost much at the time, but you can probably get what it means there. I wonder how much would it take, actually. Let's try and burn out some more hunger. So we got 3 bars of hunger now missing. Let's spawn. So it's only like part of a bar. Did that actually give me any hunger? Or did it die from the Wither effect? Just so I don't die here. That's not the button I wanted to press. That's the button I want to press. So it seems to do like 1 hunger chunk, which isn't great, to be completely honest. Could be better, but it's enough health to... That's useful enough. By the way, this origin is created for version 1.16.5. but we are currently testing it in 1.18.1. So most origins from 1.16 can do fine on 1.17 and 1.18. There are a few of them that kind of break, especially ones that are dimensional based origins. Dimensional based origins will always break when it goes to the next update, just because of how they are. So dimensional ones will break, but most origins that don't have any special aspects to them that require like specific things that are only exclusive to that version of Minecraft don't tend to break too much. Next thing, you've got Wither immunity. You're immune to the effects of the Wither. Pretty understandable, that one. I'm pretty sure you can gather what that means. You just don't take Wither based damage. Unstable soul, because your body is half Wither, your soul needs more energy to stay stable. Is that more just your hunger will burn quicker? Is that what I'm seeing here? Well, let's get some food.
So this means your hunger's gonna burn at a quicker rate. That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, it seems to be going faster than usual.
Oh yeah, that's definitely going down faster. Instead of it taking part of the chunk, bit by bit, it does like a huge portion of it half the time. Okay. Then of course, last but not least, your natural spawn will be in the Nether. I mean, you've already seen that. We started in the Nether, for Christ's sakes.
So have you ever wanted to jump dimensions extraordinarily quickly without having to make up those annoying portals or find the end portal to jump into those dimensions? Well, here's the Warper Origin, a dimensional jumping warp network origin. It's a big one. It's a big one. That's the best way to describe it. There's a lot to it. There's a lot. So me and you, we're going to discover everything about this origin together. I've got this big message on the side here from the creator known as Mr. Play, pretty much describing how things work. We're going to discover together before I properly go over it with you, because you know I still don't know what's happening here either. But this mod can be found on the CurseForge website. There'll be a link down below for it, as it's a mod that you just install as a jar. It's not a data pack. It makes things 10 times easier for you, as well as you don't need to go to a Discord server to find it. Let's get into it. First thing of note, we've got a bunch of new sound effects, which is pretty interesting. It's like just right off the bat. Good old... What did I have that I just discovered? Oh! Oh, I see. Okay, then if I sprint and then... Oh! Okay, so what ability would this one be? So, Relentless, you can move in ways that others would consider unnatural. Hold crouch while sprinting to slide, and jump while adjacent to a wall and you can leap off it. You cannot slide or wall jump while starving. Pretty self-explanatory. Have you ever... Okay, for those people who've played first-person shooters like Call of Duty in recent years, actually that'd be a bad question. How about Apex Legends? With the whole mechanic of you can crouch to slide when you're running. That's so weird. It's not really that big, but that's interesting. Hold on. That could be an interesting skill combo though. Jump, and then if you can keep your sprint when you jump, you can do a slide. You can do a double leap off the side of a wall, and then do a slide as well to go a little bit further. Okay, let's go back in order. First off, we've got interdimensional sigh. Press your primary ability key to enter an out-of-body state, conjuring a mental image of your surroundings. Press your mouse key to switch the view dimension. End is not available by default, but becomes accessible upon visiting a stronghold. So that should answer some questions about, let's say, how do you balance this? If this allows you to teleport to dimensions without the use of portals, how do you balance it so you don't have access to the end until a certain point? Basically, you can't go to it until you've visited a stronghold, which I feel is a good way of doing things. So roll it into it. Press this. Oh, this is good. Okay, so one of the big issues with the older versions of Warper is you would not know where the hell you're going. You'd randomly like go in, and then you would be stuck in whatever spot you're in. Does this mean blocks? So you can just look in. Yeah, okay, so it completely... By taking damage there, it completely deactivated my abilities. But now we're over here in the Nether. Can we go back to the overworld? There we are. Take hits. Overloading. Oh. Okay, so whenever you take damage, you get overloading for a few moments, and then when you're not overloaded, you can teleport again. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. That is genuinely a cool one. So what else do we have? Hold on. So, spawn one there, then I press 3, and then do that. He just got dealt a crap ton of damage. Because I would assume that true damage ignores all forms of, That's cool though. So, okay. So far, what I've gathered from just playing around with it, one of the biggest things you're going to want to make sure that you do with this Origin is you want to immediately, when you start off, use your secondary ability key to activate your warp portals, and then press G to go into your interdimensional eyes and actually set a warp point at your spawn. Because of the big thing here is that this Origin will randomly choose what dimension you'll respawn in if you haven't set a bed spawn, as well as a bunch of other cool things about this. But that's like one of the biggest things that I think you should make sure you do when you're playing around with this Origin, that you immediately set up something so that you have a home point in each dimension. So whenever you go to the Nether for the first time, you want to put yourself a warp point there as well at your portal, because you can use it to get back to your portal very quickly. And if you get, let's say, put into the end after you go into a stronghold, or you go to the overworld but you want to do something in the Nether because you just died or something, you can easily just go back to doing that. Keep in mind, if you do take any form of damage, it will deactivate your teleportation abilities for a brief moment, which could be enough to screw you over in most circumstances. Adaptive. Your body evolves to fit your current dimension. Staying in the overworld increases walking and swimming speeds, but increases your hunger drain and fire damage. Staying in the Nether increases your mining speed and fire resistance, but increases damage taken, making water damaging, and restricts your diet to meat. Staying in the End increases attack damage and fall resistance, but reduces mining speed, makes both fire and water more harmful, and limits your diet to plants. Wow. So basically, depending on what biome what dimension you're in, will depend on what happens to you. That's something else. Warping form, your body bends and twists under pressure, you're smaller, and health and attack speed are reduced, and your armor drains with health. I wasn't on the right screen for that. So essentially, what we gather here is that as you take more health, so based upon how full your health is, depends on how much armor you have. The less health that you have in that time, the less damage resistance you have from your armor. Holy sh, that's cool. That's a really cool ability. But my god, getting into any form of dangerous fight can screw you because you're no longer because the more damage you take, the less resistant to damage you are. Signal interference. Your spatially anomalous properties prevent you from using artificial teleporting method. Nether portals and ender pearls will not function for you. Having so your ender pearls and nether portals not work for you is honestly just a fair thing to do, considering that this ability can teleport on its own. It doesn't need that. So, kind of. New version of the Starborne Origin has officially been released, but this one is so much different than last time. In today's video, I'm going to be running through the new Starborne version 5 Origin created by Slayer, and you can find a link to it in the description down below. Anyhow, let's get started. With this version of the Origin, there is a lot of new things that come with it. There is a collection of new abilities, as well as you have the ability to choose between 2 core abilities to your Origin. Otherwise, when it comes compared to the version 4/version 3 version of the Starborne Origin, there's not too many differences in those core abilities, except for all these new additional things. So running through the very basic things, your jump is still about the same, just this time around the boost ability that boosts the mobs up into the air has been combined into the same ability as your jump. So whenever you jump, things will fly up into the air as well. This used to be 2 different abilities in one of the previous versions, but now it's just been combined into one. The next ability that seems roughly the same is again your ability to shoot a little firework bolt that does some damage. This is key to your secondary ability key, and it still does about as much damage as it did before, doing a bit of explosive. First big changes to come about with this Origin though, out of the cool stuff,
is that you'll no longer explode when you die, meaning that you won't have to worry about accidentally destroying everyone's stuff around you as well as destroying your own stuff because of how the mechanic works. Basically, the mechanic works by spawning a supercharged creeper on your body that would immediately explode after you die. That's been removed. So let's get our first ability. When you enter the Nether for the first time, you will get the ability to choose your first ability. First, you have Celestial Shield as a possibility. Resist damage for a few seconds while blasting nearby projectiles back to where they came. With your first ability, you want to use the Load Hotbar Activator, which is keyed to X by default. You can change this to other things, but it's keyed to X by default. Go in survival mode and pressing X. When these skeletons shoot me, I will take a wee bit of damage, but their shots will go right back into them, and now they're starting to fight because one of the shots was redirected back into them. Now, if you didn't like the first ability you picked for your first ability, you can actually reset it. To reset your first ability, you have to do this in survival mode, as this doesn't quite work in creative or any other mode. You take a respawn anchor and you right click it on top of an end crystal. And then you'll be given the ability to switch your abilities. Now let's try out Star Dash. The Star Dash ability, again keyed by the same ability, same key, allows you to dash. But in order to actually properly dash, you need to be moving in a direction. If you just press the dash button and you're not moving, you'll just stay in the same spot. Then, let's go. It super speeds you around, probably by about 10, 20-ish blocks in a very quick succession, allowing you to get from place to place in a very quick amount of time whenever you need to. This runs on a short cooldown, but will also fill up your stress bar.
See, it's very useful to just move around in a far quicker state. But if you do max out your stress, you will die. So basically, some things to keep in mind here is you have a stress meter. So far, I haven't quite figured out how it decreases. We might figure that out throughout the rest of this video, but by using your abilities, you'll slowly increase it. When you're also sitting in the Nether, it will also slowly increase as well. So basically, your bet is to go into the overworld after you get your Nether ability and try and spend the least amount of time in the Nether as you possibly can. Now I'm going to take a look at Stellar Strike. So over here, we're going to aim with a cursor and press X. As you can see, there's little beautiful sparkles to mark that something will be landing there. And then you can see the beautiful effect after the fact as a star forms. I'm sorry, turtle. But you must be campfire. It does a fairly decent amount of damage, but not enough to kill, let's say, a turtle as we saw just then. Where if we were to use our secondary ability, that would also not kill. I hear a zombie somewhere. Basically, it's a nice little star thing that does a minimal amount of damage. It does some damage. But be wary, you can also kill yourself with it. A very big thing to keep in mind. Respawn anchor, and let's move on to Atomic Blast. Take a moment to indulge some nearby star enemy and then expel it to the nearby area, blasting away nearby creatures. The perfect ability to get when we're heading into the night time. Pressing X. Oh. So what this does is when you press X, you'll be frozen for a moment, but once the ability cools down, the timer ticks down, it will explode everything around you far away from you, causing them to fly high up in the air, and if they're not immune to fall damage, they will most likely die. And also, as you can see, now that we've headed into the nighttime, the beautiful passive effects you get as a Starborn at nighttime are still present. Mixing with your flying ability allows you to do, mixing with your jump ability allows you to do some pretty mega jumps throughout the night. Again, same as it was before. We've now got the Cosmic Flares. Fire swift barrage of flaming stars that will pierce walls, quick to ignite the enemy. So doing it from here. As you can see here, not only did it hit a turtle up here, it also hit the turtles that are down here, as well as some that are just over here. You see, this little guy's got a fair bit of range. If we go into the ground here, as it recharges, yep, they should still be there. We press his ability. As you can see, it went through the walls and attacked with this turtle, killed the other turtle that was here, and pretty much hit this guy over here. Because he's in water, he immediately was, well, doused, those flames were. But it's a very useful ability if, let's say, you're trying to deal with a collection of mobs that are sitting outside of your home base. You can just simply press it and do. You simply press it and do a fair bit of damage. Also, the beautiful effects that this does, out sparkles all the way out there and then sparkles start to fly everywhere, it's just a nice little added thing. We have got the Stellar Reminder. 3 seconds after hitting a mob, a falling star will come down from the heavens to hit them for extra damage. This one's a very simple one, essentially. Hit a boy. and a few seconds, he gets some bonus damage. We'll say it again. You hit the boy, you wait a few moments, and then some extra damage comes. Again, this ability also will damage you if you're close enough to the explosion. So again, be very careful of that. I still got that mod on. Lol. You wanna know what that mod was? Check out the previous video. Say an Optify and zoom and store. But the idea of this, if you hold shift and then press C, you'll set this as a point in time that you can come back to. So let's say we go all the way this way. By pressing C without shifting, I'll go right back to this point here. Now it takes a few moments, and you'll also go completely blind when doing this, so be very wary of that one, as if you get in a sticky situation, it won't be an instantaneous move, and it will kind of stop you from being able to do things as well. But overall, could be pretty useful to get out of any potentially sticky situation. Moving into our next ability, we've got the Ionized Star. When someone is lifted up by the speedy star, they will be hit by a blast of plasma at the turnover of their point of velocity. Now this is a pretty cool ability in my personal opinion. If you know the ability where you can shoot mobs up using your jump ability, this just adds more damage to that, as not only will they jump up, but when they reach the top point where they start to come back down, they will be struck by lightning. More often than not, the mobs that will survive the fall damage will definitely not survive that. As we can see, he goes up in the air,
and he takes lightning damage and dies on his way back down, as he's about to take the massive amount of fall damage. Again, take the chicken, who outlives fall damage, he goes up there, and he's dead. It's a very interesting ability and can be used for some pretty unique combos if you grow to understand it. Next, we have Black Hole. Summon a rapidly shrinking black hole to bring nearby mobs nearby very quickly. This is interesting. You see that horse over there? He's not close enough. Well, that's a bit of a shame. That's kind of our distance, I guess. So, wait, let's go a little bit closer to our boyo over here. This is a very interesting ability. When you do it, you press C, and we failed again because he's not close enough. I think roughly it's around 10-ish blocks you can be away from mobs in order for it to actually work. But in doing this, we press C, and we zoom the horse over here. This works with as many mobs as is close enough as possible. Essentially speaking, all the mobs will be pulled over as long as they're close enough, which can lead to some pretty interesting situations. And one of the more interesting things you can do is you can combo this in with a nice jump that sends them up to do a massive amount of damage to a massive amount of foes if you have a good amount of like mobs that are nearby you and you want to just do some quick damage to a lot of them. But you don't have access to that beautiful lightning turnaround, so unfortunately you won't be able to do that extra thing there. This is a warp star. Turn into a small star for a short amount of time, quickly transversing the air in a swimming-like fashion. Press the button again to exit it manually. Getting hit will instantly exit the form as well. If you didn't like the other form, the wormhole ability, this could be the ability for you instead. Using this, you'll quickly be able to move away from your destined location, fly around, do whatever the hell you want. Now you can see a little timer bar there. If you take any form of damage, this will immediately bring you out of it. You can also press the key to bring you out of that ability, or you can let the timer fall out. Keep in mind the Starborne does take fall damage, so if you do go up high in the air and the timer runs out whilst you're in the air, you will kind of fall down to probably your death. Overall, an interesting ability that could be very useful if you just need to get away fast, because it makes you a lot faster than normal. You're also mostly invisible aside from some sparklings that is following you at the time of this. Moving on to our last one for the secondary abilities, we've got the Star Sniper. Turns the shooting star into a sniper, but not good for AoE, but has high range, high damage, but also a high cooldown. This one will change your secondary ability. The ability of the little bit of a star beam will now do more damage than before. It also will have a far longer range than before, but it won't have as much as a cooldown. The cooldown will be longer as well. The other interesting thing to this is it also makes the damage splash a lot smaller, meaning that it will be less effective in AoE damage. But again, it's got some pretty wacky range. If we see that cow good over there in the distance, once we wait for this to cool back down, we shoot the guy. I don't know if he took damage. I don't know if that was quite long enough of a range. But it was pretty close. I saw the clouds and smoke stuff nearby him. Oh no, there we are. There was just a second cow there. He got roasted from that sheer distance. As you can see, very useful for the extension of the distance. Now before we move on to our next thing, let's figure out how do we deal with our stress levels. Now, really, it's as simple as in real life. It's the way Slayer described it. All you need to do is at full health, press shift, and hold, and wait. And as you can see in the corner, the stress bar starts to dissipate and a bunch of sparkles start flying off of us. Then once you've done that, you can go back to normal, and your stress bars are also back down to empty. The next thing that comes from the video is a new weapon. You take a Nether Star, you right click on a Netherite sword, and you get the Star Weaver. Now this does get transformed back into a diamond sword, but I don't think it matters that much when it does 12 attack damage, with 1.6 attack speed, 25% movement speed whenever you're holding it. So whenever you're not holding it, you don't do much, but when you hold it, you start moving around at a faster rate. A husk with this ability. There's also fire aspect which will be effective on these mobs as well, allowing you to do an extreme amount of damage and also cook a lot of food. But again, it requires a Nether Star to right click on top of a Netherite sword in order to get this beautiful little weapon. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a bedrock in Minecraft? Have you ever wanted to be able to break bedrock in Minecraft? Well, today we're going to be showcasing the Bedrockean Origin, which does all of these things and so much more. So stay tuned and watch the entire video as there's so much to this one, you're not going to want to miss out on it whatsoever. The Bedrockean Origin is created by the user known as Darkstar Echo, and you can find this in the Origin's Discord server by using the link down below to go directly to the most recent message at the time of recording. If it doesn't work, just search up Bedrockean in the search bar on Discord. Running into the Origin itself, the Bedrockean is a high impact Origin. The simple description is bedrock. Starting off, you have fire immunity. You're immune to all type of fire damage.
grabbing ourselves a bucket of lava, putting it down, and going to survival mode. As you can see here, I can walk into it, and we do not take any form of fire damage at all. But you want to know the big bonus with this one here is the fact that the creator has actually gone out of their way to make it so that even the fire sprite does not appear on your character when you're in lava. Overall, very useful. The next ability we have is Acrobatics. You never take fall damage no matter what height you fall from. It's pretty much as simple as it means, you just don't take fall damage. You can go mega up into the air, you can come and drop down, and you take absolutely no damage at all. Whoop, I might have spoiled something else a little later, but we'll go over that in a moment. Next ability we have is the Strong Arms ability. You're strong enough to break natural stones without using a pickaxe. Now, overall, a lot of the origins that do this have a bit of a problem with how they mine stone. This one doesn't though. A lot of the origins that give you the ability to be able to mine stone with your bare hands, they don't actually increase your mining speed with your bare hands, so it's still logical to just ignore your hands ability entirely and just go straight into getting a pickaxe of some sort. But with this one here, it is actively made so you mine just a wee bit quicker. But one of the weirder quirks with this is it will not give you the cobblestone back when you mine cobblestone, it only functions with normal stone. But it does work with deep slate as well. You can get the deep slate from that with your bare hands, but you cannot get the cobble, nor can you get the cobble deep slate. Both of them will mine at the default speed that you'd mine them with. Next we have Sturdy Skin. Even when without wearing natural armor, your skin will provide natural protection. It's a very simple thing. You've got 4 bars by default on your armor as bonuses, pretty much mean that you have a wee bit more armor and defense when it comes to damage taking, and this is on top of whatever armor you choose to wear, so you can ultimately have better armor points. The next ability of this origin is Unwieldy. The way your hands are formed provide no way of holding a shield upright. Now the easiest way to tell about this one is just by simply hovering over a shield. As you can see here, it says unusable / brackets unwieldy. This just pretty much means you can't use it. You can have it in your hand and your offhand, but you can't right click to actually do anything with it. It's pretty much useless. Don't worry about making a shield really. Next, you have Dense. Due to your density, you have double the amount of health, as you probably would have also already noticed with the double health bars, and you're also slower. Pretty simple. So as you can see, you've got 2 bars of health, which is basically just 20 hearts. 20 hearts is pretty useful, but you can also notice that you move about so slow in comparison to the average player. But overall, I think it's a fair trade-off, like losing a bit of your speed for a lot of extra health. Just makes you easier to get hit if you do get involved in anything stupid. Moving into your next ability, as you might have seen when killing that zombie just beforehand, you got Powerful Arms. Due to your great strength, you can launch mobs into the air whenever you hit them, which is a very interesting ability, might I say, as we can get this creeper here and we just punch him. Off he goes, up into the air and right back down again. It's not like he gets knocked back though, he just launches directly up, which is interesting. I think there's a wee bit of knockback, but most of it's like propelled up and then a slight bit backwards. So it's not going to be able to be useful to knock, let's say, mobs into some lava pretty easily. That one was because it was close enough. But if we go back here and we do the ability and hit him, he's going to more likely go that way. Like we hit that and he's going to go that way a little bit further enough to get hit in the lava apparently. Fair enough. Do it again. It's like just barely enough. I think it's like, from what I can gather, it's about 8-ish blocks high with about 3-ish blocks back. It's pretty interesting to say the least. Moving to the next one, you got Heavy Body. Due to your great weight, you can barely jump a block high. You can still jump a block high, but just barely. As we can see here, going out, we jump, you barely make that. Like, you literally barely make that. If it was even a like, let's say we have, you grab carpet, you can no longer make it up. Like just even a bit of carpets on the next block above, you cannot jump up it whatsoever. Next, you have Bedrock Skin. You are nearly unbreakable because of your bedrock ancestors, so you're immune to drowning and starvation. You're also a bit darker tint due to being, well, a bedrock. You probably would have noticed that when we were looking at me before. My skin's overall darker than normal, which this isn't too much of a thing to really care about. I just more like, it's more of a needy that you're immune to hunger, I think it's said. Yeah, you're immune to starvation, which is your hunger, meaning that no matter how low your health your hunger bar gets, you won't starve to death. And you also can't drown, because you're a rock, essentially. Invincible, I don't know what that means, sorry, I probably am reading that horribly. Using your primary ability, like your ancestors, you can be immune to all damage, but when you do it, it costs your speed and your strength. So if we go into survival mode here, and we press the G button. As you can see, we put a creeper down, he explodes, he no longer hurts us, but you can't move anymore. And if we get an egg, you no longer can do damage to other mobs whilst in this ability. Now this will just stay on permanently until you press the G button again. Then you're free to go back to doing your normal things, move around at your average speed, but the moment you press G again, you go back to your normal thing, to the being the you can't move, you're continuously still, you can't do damage, and so on and so forth. Moving to your next ability, you got Lava Vision. Since you are most of the time covered in lava, you have adjusted to sin. This is of course in reference to the fact that how a lot of lava in the underworld, or at least below the normal levels, is hidden underneath lava. So if we go over here to this lava here, you can see perfectly fine. Like there is no problem with, like you can visibly see in that lava, no problems at all. Like you can see normally, you're completely immune to it as I showed earlier, and you've also got really, really good visibility. Overall, making lava a really good friend of yours if you want to make use of it. Like let's say if you're in an underground ravine, lava is literally going to be so useful. You can literally just hide in it. Hi. And now they've hit each other. Now they're fighting. Look at them go. They were trying to get me. Now they hit each other because I'm high in the lava. I mean, this is probably not the reason why they hit each other, but I digress. While they fight, let's go to our next ability. Next, you have Bedrockean Heal. You heal differently than most, so you have a consistent heal. You get half a heart each second and a half, meaning that you can heal normally without your hunger. Like you'll heal differently. You have a basic healing thing. Go right there. As you can see, I took damage. I healed back half a heart. I healed back the other half a heart. So essentially speaking, you have just an indefinite heal as well. It just takes a few moments. You have to be patient with it. It's basically you just take cover until you heal back to normal. How did this guy hit me? What the hell? But overall, it's pretty interesting to know. Next, you have Bright Sun. The sun is too bright for your cave-adapted eyes. What does that mean? Let's go to the surface and let's go see what that means. Going underneath a tree over here, if we go out into the sun, all of a sudden you have blindness. This blindness will stay with you until you go back underneath something. So whenever you're exposed out in the open, you cannot see a thing. Like your vision is completely null and void. You'll have to rely on the undercoverings of trees and other blocks. You cannot stay out in the open because you'll lose all forms of visibility, which, you know, you understand that's not really good. Not handy at all. Next one is no elytra. Due to your great density, you could not ever fly. There's a bit of a spelling error here. It says every instead of ever. That's literally it though. Don't think that matters particularly much. But if we wear ourselves an elytra, we cannot put it on our arm slot whatsoever. Like I'm actually clicking to get this on, it won't go on. It's very simple, it just won't work, you know? It ain't gonna go on your arm slot. Next is miner. You're built to mine, so you mine faster. I mean, this is very self-explanatory. Like let's grab ourselves a shovel and a pickaxe here. We go into not spectator mode, we want survival mode here. We shovel at a nice super speed and we just mine, instant break. Like you have insta break, almost near insta break with a default never right pickaxe, which I think is really, really, really good. Imagine having your haste 2 beacon, you'll insta break stone, guaranteed. You'll insta break potentially like coal and other things with maxed out never right pickaxe of efficiency of 5. Actually, let's just do that. So enchant Krzair with efficiency 5. Target is either immune to effects or has something stronger. But yeah, with a efficiency 5 neverite pickaxe, you can insta break without haste whatsoever. Efficiency 5 neverite pickaxe, it's all you need, and you can insta break. As we saw just then, it doesn't look like you'll get affected with haste, which is pretty intriguing to say the least. But, you know. So, next is bulky. You're bulky, so you sink underwater and also gain slowness. I mean, guess we're heading back up to the surface again. You know, the fun stuff of this. If we just come over here, we just even go to creative mode. We duck down, and as you can see, you immediately go to the bottom of the ocean. Again, you've got the perks of that you don't drown. So, this overall won't be too bad to deal with. You can just explore underneath the ocean. Like you'll see in a moment, our bubbles will go down to nothing, and we'll still won't essentially die. You see, ocean bubbles going down to nothing, and we're fine. We can just do our thing. We can do some mining under here. We don't have to worry about water. We can just do our thing. We don't have to care too much, you know? Next, you have short, because you're a block tool because you used to be a block. See, going up to the next block, you're literally just, you're not actually a block tall. You're just a wee bit shorter than a block. Not by much. It's not going to really affect anything particularly much. Like, I think you can't go on any trapdoors if I think correctly. Let's just test this. Yeah, no, you can't go on any trapdoors without crouching, so you're essentially just a block high because there's nothing smaller than a trapdoor when it comes to height, so... Next you have is potion immune. Your skin is too hard for potions to get through and affect you. That's why we don't have the haste ability that I tried to inflict earlier, because you can't actually use it. You can't use potion effects. Which this then brings me to our next ability here. We got Bedrock Collector. You can collect bedrock, and since you're stronger than most, you can break bedrock with a netherite pickaxe. You sit here and you just mine for a little bit. Now, I would say with an efficiency 5 netherite, it's about as, I'd say about half the pace of obsidian. But you could successfully mine bedrock at a fairly decent pace. Like, that isn't too bad of a pace to get a piece of bedrock. And you can collect it and build with it. You can do what you want with it. You can collect bedrock, you can build your house out of bedrock, and you can also troll your friends with bedrock. I mean, that's probably what most people are going to do, just troll their friends, because, you know, bedrock is unbreakable by a lot of people, so, it's going to be interesting. Next, you have food. You've never eaten, so you've never had a full bar of food. So as you can see here, my food bar is dead empty. It's completely something you don't need to worry about. You don't starve to death. You're already slow, so the slowness of... you just don't have any form of sprint because you're slow. You're meant to be a block. You're meant to be slow. And you just have no hunger bar because you don't eat food. You heal for your other methods. And then you have deep down. You spawn in an underground mine shaft. I mean, we saw that as before with our default area, but if you kill yourself, I'll respawn back in here. This beautiful room here that we started off in before. This is in the middle of a mine shaft area. It's overall just pretty self-explanatory. You spawn into a mine shaft. Either way, that was a Bedrockean Origin. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe. It's highly appreciated. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Either way, click this video on screen here for some more Origins based content. But until next time, guys, bye bye.